campers. It's Monday morning. Welcome to Midnight's Edge in the morning. This, I believe, is the last episode of the year. Oh, I take that back. Wednesday, we're going to find out, or Thursday, we'll find all about. I'm kidding. There's no 30th. I screwed that joke up already. Good morning, kids. Well, it's only Monday, and Disney is getting the shit kicked out of it. So that's what we're going to talk about this morning. Joining us, of course, is the boss man. How you doing?
Greetings, everyone. I'm doing well. I mean, I've seen Cocaine Bear and everything, so looking forward to diving into the competition between the two at the box office, which turned out to be a lot closer than anyone had, well, not anyone, but that anyone in the industry had anticipated. Tom, of course, saw it coming.
I wished it would have won. That'd have been nice. But
with a better director, it would have.
I think you're right. And what's sad is that Lord and Miller were the producers. Why didn't they just direct this thing too?
I can tell you. But we'll get back to that. We'll get back to that later.
Well, somebody else who has seen the film is Culture Casino, and he's here as well. How are you doing?
I'm great, actually. I loved the film. Well, I didn't love it. Okay, I need to calm that down. It was a good film. It wasn't a great film. It wasn't an epic film. It was an entertaining film, and I loved it. Dumb, stupid fun.
It delivered, though, didn't it?
It did, indeed. Yeah.
It promised you a cocaine bear, and you got one.
Yeah, and 175 pounds of Colombian marching powder, indeed. It was an adventure. And look, I have the same complaints that Andre did in today's video. You should be watching that video, everyone. Today's video was great, and I agree with Andre's take. Under a different direction, it probably would have done even better.
Yeah. But we'll get back into that a little bit later here.
Yeah, I loved it. Anyway, sorry. Hi, everybody, and thanks for being here.
Well, we might have to anyway, because I don't know if Paul or Script are still here, but Script Doctor says be right back. So we do have a Script Doctor in the house, but he's just wandering around somewhere doing something. And also with us is Paul, but he did go to grab some coffee, so I don't think he's back yet.
Yeah.
But good morning, kids. How is everybody doing out there in YouTube land? While we're waiting for those guys to get back here, let's see what you guys are up to. We got Final Smash here, who sent in a super chat for $2. It says, does Kevin Feige regret not retiring after Endgame? Well, I don't know about that, but...
well, if he isn't yet, he will.
I'm sure this morning is not a very comfortable morning for him in the office.
I do believe that that over the course of the next few hours, him and Iger are going to have words, and they're not going to be pleasant ones.
Well, the beauty of it for him is that I think Iger might be a little distracted, but we're going to get into all of that.
Oh, yeah.
Because I would not want to be a Disney employee this morning.
No.
It is probably one hell of a day at the office, we'll say.
Yeah.
But we'll get into that subject. Hyperguyver 2 says, never underestimate the power of a coked up bear. Well, as I've been saying for how long now, Hollywood needs to get back to cocaine and capitalism. At least they're halfway there.
They're living on a prayer right now.
And at this moment, Cocaine Bear might actually make its money back by the middle of the week. We'll see. Well, maybe next weekend it will. Because it's a $35 million budget? Yeah, something like that. So
that's what they will admit to, but I do believe promotion and release was expensive, but still not so expensive that this is not going to be profitable. And I'm honestly grateful about it, because this was a movie that was very light on the message. So light that you actually have to look for it to find anything at all. So, sends a signal that this is successful. It's basically... bring back capitalism and coke is the message of the movie.
So we'll discuss that even more in depth here, as you said. Dr. Longdongler sends us a thumbs up sticker. Please hit that thumbs up if you haven't already. We've got the God King Dictator who says, how does Sheridan make good stuff? And we Trekkies have had Satan's testicles run over beloved franchise into the ground. Good riddance, Kurtzman. Well, this is a very nuanced question here. Taylor Sheridan was kind of an anomaly, really. He came out of nowhere in a weird way. He was an actor for many years, tried it as an actor, didn't quite make it as anything more than like a character actor, and started writing. Had a huge success with Sicario. And then finally with Yellowstone, he just blew out of the water. Like it was just, he didn't stop from there. Every show he's produced since then has been pretty much a success.
Yeah.
So on the other hand, with Kurtzman, well, Kurtzman's light is dimming in Hollywood. He had very little to do with Strange New Worlds, as far as we knew, and next to nothing to do with the third season of Picard. After he screwed up Clarice, I heard most of his goodwill in Hollywood had gone away. Like, that was meant to be a very big prestige show for CBS.
There was a tell. Remember, like, I think it was the review from the Hollywood
Entertainment
Reporter.
Weekly.
Anyway, Entertainment Weekly, thank you. That review was particularly scathing and personal. And that was allowed to be printed only goes to show that the protection had been removed. And
mischief managed.
Again. Yeah, exactly. And welcome to the stream, Mr. Chato.
Hey.
Yes, indeed.
Nice
Welcome.
to include my stream.
Yes.
Even with my enlarged prostate. So I'll be leaving every 10 minutes.
Oh, no. All right. Well, that's all right. No. Hopefully you're not in any bad health for that.
No, I just got to, cut down on my coffee.
As long as it's there, it's all good. So, yeah.
Okay.
That's why I have a camper van. I pulled up once at a golf tourney next to a guy in a Lamborghini, and I said, my camper van costs about the same as your Lamborghini, but I can shit in my car.
Well, he could in his, but it probably wouldn't be so pleasant.
He could, but it wouldn't be very pleasant. So
no,
we had a good laugh.
But somebody who is very pleasant, Chris Gore is with us. How are you doing?
Hey, Chris, how are you?
Yeah,
good to hear from you.
How's it going?
It's pretty good. That's my Chris Gore now. I'm working on it.
That's my morning voice for sure.
I was gonna say that's definitely his morning voice. I don't know about regular.
Hey, I'm working.
It's actually
Chris.
It's actually Gordoc, right?
That's right.
That's what it looks like.
I do like that image, though. That is
fantastic,
and it's brilliant to have you here, Mr. Gore.
Good to be here as well.
I see you've been working on your bikini body.
Those are just some old pictures. I don't know. Gary was trying to troll me, so I trolled him back. I don't know who won.
Was that actually like? No, we'll get past that. But good morning. Hopefully you had a good weekend.
Yeah. I hope you guys did as well.
But yeah. So to finish this up, though, not only did Kurtzman piss off CBS, I got to imagine MGM was a little perturbed by this whole thing too, because it really kind of soiled their chances of possibly having Clarice come back in a Hannibal spinoff that never came to fruition. So I think that pissed off two parties in that whole mess.
Yeah, he got himself placed on a lot of shit lists, and rightfully so.
Between that and the Dark Universe, I think he's pretty much persona non grata, right, like next to his friend there, JJ.
Taylor has constantly become the modern day Aaron Spelling.
I don't know if I'd compare him to him so much as Stephen J. Cannell. I think I compare him a little bit more to.
I was gonna throw Bruckheimer in there, but I feel where you guys are coming from.
Not quite yet. Like Bruckheimer started in film, then went to
the only reason I add Spelling, not because of his production
spin-offs,
because of his cheese.
I was gonna say the spin-offs, because 90210 had like how many freaking spin-offs? Like,
well, no, it's just Taylor has got a nice amount of cheese in his stuff that
he does, yeah.
Oh, it's very soap opera. That's Script why I were on Nina Infinity's channel last night talking about the second season of Yellowstone, and like I said, flat out, this is basically the same shit that Dallas and Dynasty was back in the day.
Yeah, really. Exactly.
So in that respect, but that's kind of it. He just knows how to tap into, and this is kind of what I said. I don't remember which stream I said it on, but basically Taylor Sheridan reminded Hollywood that there is a middle America between the two coasts that like to watch television, right? These are the same reason that for years shit like Little House on the Prairie, The Waltons, shows like that were huge. Like I said,
Green
Dallas,
Acres.
Dynasty, Green Acres, Andy Griffith. They like middle America stories. Like even
Especially
if it's
authentic looking and situational middle America stories, like things that they're like, oh, I recognize those behaviors. I recognize those people from there. It's not a coastal perspective of conjecture of what middle America is. He tries to do something that's more in line with what they're actually dealing with.
Well, whether he's doing it on purpose or not, you can just tell from his shows. And I hate to use the word zeitgeist. You know that he's just tapped into some kind of truth that the Kurtzmans have no idea, like they just don't exist. They don't know how to do Star Trek, and you gotta really give Sheridan credit for just really nailing all these shows.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
They're not my kind of shows, but I mean,
even with the flaws they have, they're still addicted, or you get addicted to them so easily because, like all the reasons Script said, and the shows that we just mentioned, they had the same kind of gel or whatever the hell it is you want to call it, that some of this other stuff that they haven't done in the last few years have.
Well, one of the things that I've noticed, and the quality does vary, but Sheridan seems to have a credo of every speaking role has to feel like that character is starring in their own story, regardless of whether or not we see it. Every character has a very distinct voice. They're not in there to just be exposition or not in there for a plot point and then completely discarded. Although at some points they are discarded, but they usually come back and you find out why. Like he's trying to play around with them and say, from his own perspective, which was that if he's a character actor, he wants to actually do something to stand out.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like he is making that available to all the characters he's using in his shows. Like even just recently in last night's 1923 episode, we see for the very first time a banker, and he's got a very great scene, and it's really dynamic, and it's not just a straightforward, oh, we're going to deny you this, or oh no, we're going to accept you this. It's like he's got a point of view, and it's kind of rare to see that in other shows with other budgets behind it in other genres. So
Dallas did that really well.
Yeah, Dallas did that really. A lot of soap operas do that really well.
Yeah,
but you don't get that so much in the mainstream type of thing. Sometimes you'll get Law and Order where they go interview somebody and it's just a matter of fact thing, and it's not even in a fun way like Dragnet was back in the 60s. It was just, this is what he said, this is what he told me, and then dun off to the next thing. And it's like, that was just a scene to give me information. It wasn't fun to watch.
It's funny though you say that Script about the whole, he makes every character feel like it's their show, especially 1923. Like it seems like those characters, every time we get into something with one of the characters or sets of characters, you totally forget about something else, and then you're back to the other set of characters and like, oh yeah, that, forgot about that. Like I was watching, because like last night specifically, when it would bounce back in between Spencer's story and the house, like I kept forgetting about other things. Like, oh yeah, we forgot about that. Like, because we were getting so sucked, I was getting so sucked into the story on the screen at the time, and I don't want to get into spoilers because 1923 has been amazing. I'd almost argue at this point it's only in its first season, so it has a ways to go, but it's getting to the point where I'd almost argue it's better than Yellowstone. But no, I think that it basically, he's found what works for him. He's tapped into it, and they're going to drain him if they can, it looks like. But at this point, I think Taylor's got a bright future ahead of him, and he's exactly what Paramount needed at this point. And good for him. I love the shows, and I'm, it's sad. You can almost compare it to what Star Trek did back in the day with all the spinoffs too, in a weird way. When they had TNG and then that spinoff Voyager and Deep Space Nine, because that was kind of their height. But it's
although
never
no one
to this
talks
success.
about Deep Space Nine. That's kind of the bastard child of Star Trek.
You
It's
hang
one
out
of
with
the
the
better
wrong
ones,
people.
that's the thing.
I was going to say, my friends talk about it all the time, Paul.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. That is widely considered. Well, not widely, but among those that saw it, it's considered one of the best shows there is. But let's get on with the show.
With important
Let's
stuff.
get back to the merits
Yes,
of
indeed.
Star Trek at a later time.
Yes, indeed. Haitian Fellarudo says Feige will quit fired. Alonso will get his job. I don't think it's come to that point yet, Haitian, but
No, what's going to come is Feige's going to be like, why did you compel us to reshoot Antman, Iger? Your comedy didn't work.
and then now we're hearing, of course, the Marvel's being pushed back, and I'm sure they're going to end up reshooting that, and also hearing rumors that the Kang Dynasty thing is going to get pushed back in a year. So we'll see on that point too. But
would that surprise anybody with those numbers?
no,
Yeah.
absolutely not.
I know
No,
we're
this
getting into
is
that in a minute.
well. Look,
No, this
and
is
I said,
solo the Star Wars story right now.
Yes, it
yeah,
is.
and
And it's funny, the tables are turned because it's Lord and Miller were Solo before they got pulled out, and then they're doing the bear that we just talked about, and that's anyway. I just think it's funny.
Yeah.
Irony.
No, I think it's going to take a little bit more than this, but I think he's definitely on what you would call their radar right now. Michael Maloney says NCIS did a Cocaine Bear episode a few years ago, and it was one of the best. I did not know that. It's good to know. Of course, it doesn't help that there's like 5 billion NCIS. Speaking of another shows like CSI and NCIS had how many spin-offs?
The NCIS ones I don't get because that's an awful lot of crime happening in the Navy.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
In the Navy. Well, I mean, we've seen who's leading the Navy right now here in the United States.
Oh yeah,
True.
But still, that's I would be very circumspect of your Navy if that's the amount of crime.
One crime for every submarine the U.S. has, basically.
Jesus Christ, yeah.
We had a fairly popular detective show here in Canada that was on, we call The Rock, Newfoundland, in St. John's, the capital, which I've been there, and you can walk around it in about 15 minutes. And the amount of crime that happened in that radius, I was always shocked. Can't remember the name of the show. Charismatic guy was running and writing that show.
Yeah, well, that's the thing with the Killer a Week crime series. Eventually, the crime in those areas where it takes place is going to rack up quite considerably.
Yeah, like Jessica. What when she was in that small town in New England? Every time, oh my God, Jessica's here. Someone's going to die.
Oh, Murder She Wrote. Yeah,
Murder She Wrote.
Exactly. But
Pretty
let's
get into
on with the show here.
Speaking of murdered, what was murdered this morning, at least finally anyway, is the Reedy Creek district deal.
Yes.
So here we go. This morning is gonna feel like we're kicking the shit out of Disney, but we have nothing to do with this. We're just reporting the news, kids. This has got to be the one thing that's gonna save Kevin Feige's ass this morning, is that Bob Iger's got bigger fish to fry right now. So Culture, why don't you take us through this, because you covered this morning on your 6-minute daily.
Okay.
This is breaking news this morning. DeSantis strips Disney of their control of the Reedy Creek district.
Yeah, he officially signed into law the plan that moves forward, taking control of the specific special district that governs Disney and handing it over to a board that the governor personally selects, people of that would support the community interest. And again, all of this is they say retaliation of the Disney stepping into a political conversation in the state of Florida when it comes to parental rights. And so the 5-member Reedy Creek Improvement District Board, which of course that name is changing as well, is basically going to be people from the community that have no direct affiliation to Disney or even tangential affiliation with Disney. They just have to be concerned citizens. In fact, they can't be involved in Disney. So it'll be kind of interesting. The people that have been selected are knowledgeable folks, people with some intellect. There's an attorney named Brian Angust. There's an attorney named Martin Garcia. Ron Perry, who's the CEO of something called the Gathering USA Ministry. I guess that's a religious group. I don't know. Attorney Michael Sasso and Bridget Ziegler, who's a member of the Sarasota County School Board. So you have those are the people that are basically going to manage what Disney's allowed to do in their area. So it's pretty wild. It's pretty wild. Let's just put it that way. Of course, everybody's saying this is political retribution, and maybe to some extent it might be, but regardless, the district was managed the way it was for so very long. That it never actually fulfilled what it was designated to do. So 55 years after this special area that was created to develop a live and work community, finally it's been dissolved by this action, or not necessarily dissolved, but restructured, let's just say. So very interesting. It does take away some substantial tax benefits, right? It kind of a little bit of what some other articles are calling a tax haven. And I'm telling you right now, this was political. It was driven by people in Disney to take the actions that they did. In a new memoir coming out from DeSantis, you're going to read that the CEO, thank you for grabbing this story, the CEO actually complained to DeSantis, that would be Bob Chapek, that he's getting very much pressure from within and without to stand up to the state. So if you want to talk politics, it was coming from the company primarily. So that's a real problem. And this story just broke today as well. So it's pretty cool.
So are you telling me that a bunch of people who said we were full of shit about Chapek owe us a apology?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. In fact, I think the lines that we all said here, all of these smart people that are sitting in front of you right now on the screen, we all said the same thing. All Disney had to do was nothing. All they had to do was say nothing.
Just quit the freaking woke.
And actually, this is a point that was made by Ron DeSantis in this book that we see on screen here. So this article came out today with excerpts from DeSantis' book.
Yep.
And here he describes his interactions with Bob Chapek, because they had private conversations in which Chapek explained to him that I really want to take Disney out of politics, confirming our reporting, but I'm really subjected to pressure here, pressure the likes of which he had never imagined.
Like a
Disney
civil
has
war?
to use its influence, like a civil war, to take to influence Florida politics.
Yep.
And DeSantis basically warned him that, no, do nothing. Like, this is just going to blow over. Fine, we're going to do this, and you're going to get like a 48-hour shitstorm on Twitter. And it's going to be mostly on Twitter. It's not going to be anything real. It's just going to be angry messages, stuff like that. And then it's going to be another 48 hours later. And then the whole thing is going to blow over when the wokies find something else to complain about, because they can only focus on one thing at the time. So just wait it out and it'll be fine. But Chapek was under so much pressure that he couldn't wait it out. He had to act under pressure, but he still had to act. And that is when DeSantis and Florida had enough and fought fire with fire.
Yeah, and again, this all leads into things that we were all reporting along the line as all of this was happening. This is why they lost the PR guy that used to work for BP and then moved on from Disney, because they weren't listening to him how to avoid that exact problem that Andre just described. Don't say anything. Don't step your foot in this.
Do nothing. Yeah.
He gave
Mr.
him the
Gore.
exact. Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Gore. Let's hear your take on it.
I would love to hear your take on this.
I'm not surprised about the book excerpt and that coming to light. It's just disappointing that Chapek didn't have the resolve to tell those workers to F themselves, or to do some key firings as a warning that our policy as a company is to stay out of politics. Disney is a brand for everyone, and we're not going to get involved in this fight. And that's it. And it's, that's what you say. And if you have to fire some people to make a point, then you fire some people. I don't
think he
understand.
did, Chris. I think that's what Peter Rice was all about.
But, well, what I'm saying is that, the people that he was receiving pressure from, you don't need to work with this company if you can't align with our values, and our values to stay out of politics.
Problem is, the people he received the pressure from weren't the employees. He received most of the pressure from people at the board level.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to say. Maybe Iger is better at threading the needle of all that, politics. But
yeah, especially since he was organizing it.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't see Disney getting better. So I think they're going to continue to lean into a losing strategy.
Yeah. And I mean, they lose all over the place. This is a huge L. I mean, they got rid of again, I was talking about the PR executive, Jeff Morrell. You realize they're going to, at the end of the day, have to write him a check for $7 million. He worked less than 4 months for the company. So they have to pay him off. And, he was earning something like a ridiculous amount of money every day while he was there, because they terminated his contract early. And he didn't do anything but tell them the truth, how to properly manage this PR crisis that they'd found themselves engaged in. It blows my mind at every turn. All of the decisions related to the Disney company and all the sycophants that Iger still left in place are the whole reason for a whole house of cards starting to fall apart. And it's doing it at every level. It's not just in cinema. It's not just the theme parks. It's within their corporate structure. They're having massive issues.
Well, and the reason I bring up Peter Rice is because I think that's what he was attempting to do, Chris.
Chapek.
But then Chapek. I mean,
yeah.
And then the whole thing is that the wokies freaked the fuck out, and that's it was all part of Daddy Iger's plan. Like he almost did this on purpose. It feels like for them to basically want him back so badly because he can do anything he wants now, and they will lap it up, right? Because he's the right guy. It doesn't matter. He's firing 7,000 plus employees. They're applauding him.
Bizarre,
isn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
But to me, that just shows how bad the pressure's got to be within the company. That the wokies have pretty much taken over most of this company, and this goes right in line with things that I had been told from people. Like there was, somebody who had reached out to me from Lucasfilm, for instance, who had been a part of the company since before they were part of Disney. And they flat out said that this is the worst working situation they've ever been in their life. They're afraid to even speak their mind. They're worried about getting fired every other day. And this was right around the time Gina got ousted. And they talked about that a little bit too, and just how, the whole company was just chock full of these people, and they freak out about everything. Yeah. So it's kind of funny that they would even just sit there and go, yeah, it'll blow over. Just let them gripe. They'll find something else to bitch about.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm hearing this from all levels in Hollywood. I think I've said before, and people are free to speak out. The human resources departments at all these studios, all these companies, are just overtaxed with needless complaints from the types of people that we've been talking about, and they really are becoming like a burden on the company, on these companies as a whole. I just I wonder if any of them have the kind of resolve that, say, someone like an Elon Musk had, to just clear everyone out, to just cut it down dramatically. That's I think the only thing that fixes it, because Ant-Man's not going to be the last failure of Marvel. Close to 70%, was 69.7% drop. The worst second weekend drop for a Marvel film. I mean, that's shocking, And look, I would even argue that for normies, the movie was fine. It was fine. But there is rot, and I think a lot of it is the political messaging definitely stands out. I think it stands out for sure. And I just think that there's Marvel fatigue. This movie is going to be on Disney Plus in a couple weeks. I'll just see it then. But I think this is going to be repeated. And people are Guardians 3 is going to be great. I don't know, will it be? That poster didn't look so great. So
yeah.
I don't know. I really think that, and it's going to be almost impossible for them to turn the ship around.
Yeah, Glade Ribbon says diversity and inclusion hires are the first out the door when the restructuring comes. Disney laughs. I'm curious. I wonder if that's the way Bob's really going to go.
Well, we've already seen it, and Cameron on Friday was talking about it, and it's supported by a wave of change there. And if we only have to wait 3 weeks from now to check Glassdoor to see these people, after they've been booted out of Disney and are unemployed for a while, start to complain about all the problems at Disney, because that's what they do. They usually, announce that they're available to work on LinkedIn or some other platform. And when nobody pulls them into their organization, because a lot of these companies are laying off their HR departments, which include the DIE initiatives, those are the first things to go. You're 100% right, Clay. 100%.
So, Paul, what's your take on the whole Reedy Creek business and Ron DeSantis from a
I only know it as a snowbird going down there if it's sunny during the wintertime. We only have the Canadian perspective. Our concern up here is just how many Quebecois are affected by this. That's the Canada's most governed Quebecers, because there's so many Quebecers down in snowbirds in Florida.
Well,
so
I'd imagine at Disney, Canadians too white. So
we get great discounts up here, going down to Disney World. We'll give you Disney World at par. I mean, it's
we'll have a
fantastic
coupon
being
day.
Canadian.
And I still think it's not worth it.
So script, yeah. So what's your take on this from the entertainment side of things?
I'm pretty sure the board of directors are spinning crazy, trying to figure out a way to reconcile this. Probably even looking at possible new governor candidates that they're going to support to replace DeSantis, so that they can try and get something restored. Which it's not going to happen. But yeah, I mean, this is only like really step one, because I'm pretty sure Disney still has some significant tax breaks and other incentives with Florida that they can still take advantage of. But the Reedy Creek is definitely a critical hit to their entire business model.
Well, it removes a lot of authority where they could just breeze things through and do it in secret. Now they can't. Here's
the other part too. The cast members that work at the parks might actually get a shot at better conditions, working conditions, because I've had some friends who, actors who ended up working in the parks and working on the cruise lines, and they basically equated it to prison almost, in regards to how things function, how things work. And yeah, the cast members are the prisoners, and the customers and the higher up staff are the prison guards, just treating them like crap all the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, well, hopefully they can find a balance out of that, and make it a more welcoming environment, so that when so it mitigates the customers when they are upset, because that's one thing though. The environment at Disney World really doesn't do its best to make it the happiest place on earth for a lot of clients and customers, based on all the stories I have been emailed and heard over phone calls and Zooms and parties. Yeah, it's it definitely needs to do an about face.
It's funny you describe it that way, because it absolutely is, especially for cast members on the cruise ships. You should see those living conditions. But when you get to even the cheaper housing that Disney was offering for a period of time to the college program students and things, and some of the other stuff that they've been trying to do there, you really, in order to work at Disney as a young person, sometimes you're in an apartment with 2 or 3 people per bedroom. Or maybe, and that's kind of the situation that you live under, and you're going to hear those horror stories where employees are sleeping in their cars and stuff like that. It's not cheap to live in Central Florida, at least anywhere near the theme.
But Disney's a great place to work, because don't you remember during COVID, there was all those people that they unemployed and kicked out of their housing from other countries that had all kinds of places to go, culture. They weren't stranded in the middle of nowhere at a time when everything was shut down.
None of that. Actually, it was exactly
none of that happened.
Yeah. It was the exact opposite of that. It was really bad.
Yeah, I know. I was being sarcastic.
No,
That's
I know.
Called sarcasm.
I'm familiar. No, it's a very strange thing, and of course, I'm with Script. There probably are still some things hidden in the background that they are able to take advantage of, but they're the major tax haven loophole system, whatever you want to call it. That's now gone. And their ability to self-fund from that is another thing.
Well, not just that, self-police. They can cover up any accidents or deaths real easy.
Yeah.
That's why you never hear about any accidents or deaths that come out of Disney. Shit happens all the time.
Yeah.
But you just never hear about it, because it's handled by their own facilities. And then the same thing goes for, like you said, having to build anything or do anything to get anything through. They got to go through the standard. Honestly, I think it's about time, because every other park, like Universal and everybody else, has to go through all the standard shit. Why shouldn't Disney? They don't deserve any special treatment anymore, as far as I'm concerned. It's not like they're the only kid on the block anymore. So, Florida's got more than just Disney. So I don't know, Andre, what's your take on this? And then we'll move on to the other topics of the day.
It's going to be a really rough day for Disney today, with all of this happening all at once. DeSantis' book Reedy Creek signed away, and the Antman box office, and all of it is their own doing. How will they cope? Well, they're just going to have to cope. I mean, in terms of the Reedy Creek, all it really means is that they now compete at the same level as all of their competitors did the whole time. They just lost a special advantage. It's going to cost them a fortune. It's going to have repercussions for all future. But really, it's just leveling the playing field in a sense. But at the same time, it would never have happened. They would have had that advantage forever had they just, not fucked around. They found out.
Remaining a family company, really, honestly, and doing what they're kind of supposed to do. But Alex Ashkin put something in the chat a little while ago that was basically this. Iger is at Disney now to placate China. Well, let me say this. It didn't work because the China box office for Ant-Man and Wasp Quantumania was only $7 million this last weekend.
No, but I see where he's coming from, because as soon as Iger was back in the door, China all of a sudden magically started allowing films back on it.
But it's been, like I said, it hasn't paid off. There hasn't. You're right.
Oh, no.
But it hasn't paid off. The second weekend, it drops to $7 million in performance, which drops it to third overall in the Chinese box office. So how'd that work out for you? And you're only going to get 20% of that money. So,
well, let's get the super chats that are related to this topic so we can move on to some other topics. One I'm sure that Chris is dying to dive into.
Yeah, and something I know about. Thanks a lot, guys.
Yes. Well, this kind of just struck us this way. This was like just happened as this morning, so like it is
interesting. I think it's very, very cool. We're seeing. I mean, this would all make a great movie script.
Oh, someday it might. Matthew W says Disney has used municipal bonds to fund roads and infrastructure that only benefited them. They won't be able to do that anymore. That's the biggest loss. Yes, that's among many things.
What was the ride they've taken down?
Splash Mountain.
Splash Mountain. Wouldn't it be a neat story that's where Disney housed all the refugees, and that's the ride that they took down? See, that'd be cool.
Mm-hmm. Kevin Dorse sends in $10. Thank you so much. Says, my understanding is this bill strips Disney of the Reedy Creek District. It still leaves them with a lot of other benefits. Tax breaks are still in place. It's designed to be Ron D PR win for 24. See the book's details. Well, I'm sure we're going to have to get more into that, and I'm sure Andre will have more to say about that in the near future as well.
Oh, yes.
In a video. So we'll get deeper into that. And this is just breaking now as far as like, the threat was made, a year ago, roughly, a little over. And now it's actually coming to fruition now. So we'll have to see how it plays out. Yeah. Pilgrim Media says, I live in Florida. I have lost friends. I'm conservative. Well, I'm sorry to hear that, Pilgrim. But it's funny how all of a sudden the headlines are starting to change quite a bit. So
the 8 people in Florida who are Democrats?
I was going to say, is there that many people in Florida that are Democrats?
Well, I have no idea, but I'll say this: there's 3 or 4. There's 3 or 4 months that they had till they had to make this happen because it's supposed to be done by the end of June. So they didn't sit on it. They ran ahead. This is done well before 4 months ahead of time. If you
you're right, because I think June was when they said they were going to do it last year. Yeah.
So that's significant.
Yeah. Well. So we'll have to see how that plays out. And it looks like that is all the super chats that have to do with that. But the Tweaky Kid says that someone blast the song White Lines. Don't do it. Really loud at Disney offices. I say do it. Because what he's referring to here is kind of what I was talking about last week. And although you were right, Chris, Cocaine Bear didn't beat Ant-Man. It sure did give it a run for its money. And I got to imagine that that's the second thing on Bob Iger's desk this morning is, quote, yell at Kevin Feige for letting a movie called Cocaine Bear beat the hell out of Ant-Man, unquote. So let's start there. What was your take on this box office this weekend, Chris? Consider
not a surprise. It's an ongoing trend with Marvel. Opens big to Marvel fans that need to see it first weekend, and that's a substantial group, right? 100 million in box office group, still a shrinking group if you actually break the number down by number of admissions, which it's unfortunate that in the United States we don't actually keep track of that data. It's so hard to calculate now because people have things like, AMC A-List or other similar programs where you pay a monthly fee and then go to the movies, up to 12 times a month. So the number of admissions is difficult to calculate. And then the average ticket price, they stopped tracking that. So it's not a surprise. I'm surprised that Cocaine Bear came so close. I think what it shows is this. People really do want to go to the movies, but they want to see something different. They want to see something fresh. They want to see something new. I know we have John Wick 4, Creed 3, and Scream 6 all opening in the month of March,
Right.
along with Shazam 2, which the tickets are I mean, if you look at advanced tickets right now for it, it's empty theaters. It used to be like they'd announce a movie and it would be packed. Hardly anyone is buying advanced tickets for Shazam Fury of the Gods. So
that's why I don't think they're doing any advertising, Chris. Have you noticed there's like no advertising for that movie?
yeah, it's bizarre. Well, I think they've over advertised it for too long. And also I think there's confusion when it comes to the DCEU. There's confusion, right? Like, so is this part of the James Gunn thing? And I'm talking about normies, not anyone on the stream or listening right now. These people are well informed because they're listening to Midnight's Edge of the Morning. But yeah, I think that this Antman thing, the biggest surprise is that it came so close to being toppled, and it will do. It'll do far worse. You got like basically, I'm just going to look on Creed 3 as another Kang variant because Jonathan Majors is the main nemesis. So when I watch it, it's like, oh, so Kang was a boxer for a while. Is that what this is? But
in the Rocky multiverse, he was.
Yeah, in the Rocky multiverse. So I don't know. I'm just surprised that like because it's the Friday numbers were very close.
Technically, it beat it, but that's because they added in the Thursday night previews for Cocaine Bear.
Yeah, but that was not expected. Both Cocaine Bear and that Jesus movie. What is the name of the
Revolution? Jesus Revolution.
Yeah, Alan saw that film. Alaning it. Both movies overperformed above expectation.
You think so? I thought Cocaine
The
Bear
Jesus
would hit
movie
closer
didn't
to 30
surprise me
mil.
at all.
No, they adjusted the what the prediction was for higher based on the Thursday and Friday, what it would end up with on Sunday. So that's the surprising thing. I really do think that, and already if you track total box office, this year is better than last. So the overall box office is up. That's good.
What I'm also seeing though, Chris, is going off of your point of sequels coming out the rest of the month.
Yeah.
Most of the films that have done well, they may not be the biggest box office winners, but they've done well, managed to make money, have been the more original films. Megan,
Right.
stuff like that, to where, and I compared Cocaine Bear to Megan. And in fact, like Megan, I have had 3 or 4 people now flat out said they couldn't get into Cocaine Bear this weekend because it was sold out. Yep.
That's crazy.
Here's the thing. This movie did as well as it did on almost 1,000 less screens than Antman.
Yeah.
Now just wait until that Antman loses a bunch of screens this weekend. I have a feeling it's going to be a battle between Cocaine Bear and Creed. Because I'll tell you, I was just scrolling through Twitter and I clicked on one of the Creed advertisements on MGM's website. A lot of people are not in line for this movie. A lot of it's like no Sly, no dice.
Yeah.
Like they're really not on board without Rocky in it.
Well, yeah,
I would say at least 3 to 1 comments were negative, at least.
The other thing to look at is how well premium formats are doing. When most people go to see a movie like Antman, they see it in IMAX or they see it in 3D or they see it in, if you've
4DX.
What's that?
4DX, I think, is the popular
4DX is another option. There's also Dolby Digital. So what people are going for with a film like that is premium formats. Those are premium formats are doing great. You have a movie in premium format. That to me is the secret to the success of Avatar: The Way of Water. Is it was a film that you wanted to see in a premium format. You wanted to basically it's soaring over the world underwater. So if you're familiar with the Disney theme park ride, I know Culture is. Soaring over California, soaring over the world. Anybody?
Yeah, it's lovely. It's an amazing experience.
It's a great. I mean, that's Avatar is basically a theme park ride with a plot.
Yeah, it's they had to modify the two different designs to create the different Pandora box ride system that they have there. But yeah, it's fantastic. That Avatar attraction still is probably the best thing in the park. But that's parks, I should say. But that's just my opinion.
I have an idea for a completely new style of theater experience. No screen. Everyone brings in their phone or their iPad, and they have restricted Wi-Fi access, and they watch the movie sitting together with other people while they're looking at their own devices. How's that?
You're talking. You basically just described a Los Angeles restaurant.
There's explosions, so they know when to look up.
It's more like an airplane experience.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just instead of looking into the back of the person's seat in front of you, you're just looking on your phone.
Correct.
Yeah.
You're just looking at your own phone. See, I come up with good ideas. These need to be monetized. I need some investors.
Yeah.
Think of all the money you'd save.
But if I invest in you, I wouldn't be saving any money then.
No, you wouldn't. But
I just wish you were the head of YouTube. That would be amazing.
See, I come up with stuff like this.
So I know we have at least three panel members who have seen Cocaine Bear. I'm assuming, Chris, you've seen it. Oh, you did see it too, Script. So we have 4 now who have seen it. All right. So, Andre, lead the charge here on the reviews of Cocaine Bear.
Sure, I will keep it really short because we have many that have seen it. I saw it yesterday. I thought it was fun. It was void of any kind of messaging. Unless you really look for it, then there is some really subtle there. But still, overall, it's just a fun ride. Love the gore, love the violence. It even had some Norwegian backpackers in the beginning.
Yes,
with names from Frozen. Although I think they may have screwed up a bit there. Let's get back to that later. What I will say though is that while the movie was fun, I think it could have been more fun. I don't think it fired on all the cylinders it had the potential to fire to. Because I don't think that Elizabeth Banks was the right director for it. The script was amazing and everything like that, but I thought there was something wrong with the color palette. They chose the wrong palette for it. Something was slightly tonally off. There was just like something, for all stuff that was good, something was a little bit off, and I felt that it could have been handled better. Like, for instance, imagine the director of Deadpool. I think if he had done this, it would have been 10 times as fun.
Yeah, I see what you're saying there. Chris, what's your reaction to it?
Well, I'm right there with Andre. I think that the thing is that just based on the poster and the trailer, your thought is, well, this is going to be fun. It's going to be wild and over the top. And certainly the gore is over the top, but tonally it's all over the place. I felt it wasn't as funny as it should have been. And I think that's due to the fact that, you know, the stakes were high. Once I saw they introduced so many characters, and when they were introducing so many characters, those scenes went on way too long. And then I thought, well, a lot of these people are going to die. I wasn't wrong. And they died in gruesome ways, like intestines, you know, being ripped out and gutted, and, you know, limbs being ripped apart. And I mean, much of the violence happening off screen, and then you'd see the result. But it felt like a couple things. One, a lot of the actors were acting in different movies. The Norwegians were in a comedy. Ray Liotta was in some 70s drug-fueled Martin Scorsese movie. And the guy who played Han Solo in Solo, the least inspired name for a Star Wars movie. But
he was alone, Chris.
Yeah, exactly. What a stupid... I can't believe that movie was ever made and anyone thought that would be any good. But you know, but you know, it was just totally all over the place. It felt at times like there were two different editors battling to get their cut on the screen. And apparently this movie's been sitting on a shelf for a while. It was
Weird.
Yeah, so it was shot a while ago.
It must have been, because Ray Liotta, like, when it's a long time since he left us.
Right.
Not a long
about
time,
a year.
but a long enough, about a year.
Yeah, so it you know,
How
look,
were the effects though? Because Weta did the effects, didn't they?
the effects were fine, but felt like that's a digital bear almost all the time.
Oh, okay.
It was a digital bear.
It looked
So,
like it in the trailer too. That's what I was kind of
I
worried
mean,
about.
well, now it's not as bad as Marvel. Let's just say that. I think that Marvel overuses CG so much that it's just they you know, they use it so much it's distancing. There's something emotionally distant about a movie like Antman, and I feel the same is true with, you never feel that there's any real threat really, because, well, that's a digital bear, and I know it is because it looks like a digital bear. So in any case, I was fine with it. You know, I was entertained, but I wasn't blown away. I can't in any good conscience like recommend it, but
Wow.
yeah, no, it's just,
You can't even recommend it on like it's so fun it's bad level even.
well, I think it depends on how many drinks you're gonna have before you see the
Because
movie.
well, no, I kind of expected your answer because a lot of people have said that it's too boring. You're the third person now I've heard to say it's
Yeah,
it's
I
kind
mean,
of boring.
Look, if you have a bunch of drinks, you know, before, you'll probably have a better time than I had. But
Now,
no,
you
I'm just
mentioned the
fixed on it. You know, it's just I expected it to be better than it was based on the trailer or like how well. And here's what I expected. I expected it to be funny, and it wasn't as funny as it should have been based on the premise. You introduce
especially
a premise of a bear consuming in a way that looks so fake. The bear eats whole bags of cocaine, consumes them. I mean, it just looked terrible.
Well, you would know. You live in LA.
right.
Exactly. We see
Well,
bears.
and that bothers me because you've got Lord Miller's producers, and Elizabeth Banks is more well known for her comedic side of things more so than anything.
Right.
Like it's funny because you mentioned the tonal thing. You're not the only person to mention that it was tonally off. Like it would never decided what tone it wanted to be. When you were describing it, I know you're probably the only person who'd know what movie I'm talking about on the panel besides maybe Script. But it kind of reminded me of when I saw the movie Teeth.
Oh, that one.
Do you know the movie I'm talking about? It's like
Oh,
it felt like
yes.
it
Yeah,
couldn't
I know
decide if it wanted to be a comedy or a horror. It's like pick one. Because that's what I felt like through the whole fucking movie. I'm like, 1 minute it's hilarious, the next minute it's kind of sadistic and dark and weird, and it's like, pick a tone.
Yeah, which
go
movie?
with one. You know?
Yeah, I hear you. That makes a lot of sense. It's like, which movie are you trying to be? I kind of feel that there was a battle in the editing room, and there was also like just Elizabeth Banks just kind of not even maybe choosing which it was going to be, or maybe she shot it both ways. Like, we'll shoot this one comedic and over the top. And then this scene we're going to do very dark where someone is murdered, right? Like it's
see, you can do murder humorously, but you got to be able to do it. It's very subtle. Like you got to be able to do it just right. It's not an easy task.
Yeah.
I almost wonder if they shouldn't have got a slasher director for this. Because I think it's
no. Think of this movie. If Sam Raimi had done this movie, think of what the movie would have been.
Okay, that's more what I was getting along with the lines of.
Yeah. I know who would have been a really good fit. And
who?
I swear this is not just because I'm Norwegian, but because this guy would be a really good fit. Have you seen Dead Snow?
Yes, back in the day, yes.
Yes, okay. Have you seen like this this Christmas movie? I forgot the title of it. The one where there's a heist, like Violent Night.
Yeah, yeah.
That guy. Tommy Wirkola. It's the same director. It's a Norwegian.
Yeah.
Comparing the responses, absolutely.
He tonally would have been just the guy for this.
Yeah, Violent Night.
Someone that relishes in just like stupid stuff. He can get so much humor out of his cast. and all of his movies tonally, there's nothing weird tonally. Those movies know exactly what they are at all times. He would have been a better fit for this.
100%. Violent Night was fun, over the top, knew it was a comedy. The those scenes with the flashbacks with Santa, remembering his past. He was this
as a Viking. That was pretty
Viking.
badass.
It was so great, but the audience was bursting out laughing because David Harbour played it perfectly. And what you do is you take it seriously. And the problem with the tone in this is some of the actors took the events that were unfolding very seriously, and other actors were just sort of in on the joke. And it's like, you have to pick one, and it's the director's
That's the
job.
director's fault. Yep, right there. Sorry.
The director's job is to tone police.
Yep.
And to say to the actors, nope, don't go over the top. You're taking this very seriously. That's like if you look at a show like the 66 Adam West Batman TV series, every character in the series took the events seriously. No one was joking. Even when they delivered a funny line, they weren't joking. They were serious because
but that had one thing above Cocaine Bear. Those scripts were actually funny.
Right. Yeah. The cocaine. I just, I don't know. I feel like
the trailer for me, just from the trailer perspective, it looked like Northern Exposure with violence. The TV show had a lightness to it, and this is what it felt like. A little bit of Fargo thrown in there, but I'm not surprised. I think maybe someone who is trying to change the trajectory of their career throws in some ultra violence without really understanding the implications of it fully, without getting it. Like I could see Shane Black directing this movie.
Yeah.
And
he might get the humor too. That's the thing, is that's what it sounds like. The problem here is Elizabeth Banks.
Exactly.
It is. I think that's what I'm hearing from everybody.
Well, and Script is talking about the script here. So you saw it, Script, and Culture, we'll get back to you because we've already heard what you felt, but you actually seem to like it better than everybody else anyway. So Script, didn't sound like you had as much of a good time with it.
I was very bored. It's unimaginative. Most of the crowd that was in there, it was a packed theater I was in, but when they came out, everyone was kind of silent and disappointed.
Really? Interesting.
Yeah. Because again, they were more excited about the premise and the silliness of it, and the movie doesn't deliver on that at all. This script was written by an associate of Brian Duffield. Brian Duffield, who is actually a really well-regarded screenwriter. He did True Detective. He's done a whole bunch of other things. That's how those two met. They then hooked up with Lord and Miller, and that's how he got this movie produced, through friends of friends. But he wrote it as a lark because he didn't think anyone would actually want to, produce it. But the thing is, there's no story. This should have been like an Aeroplane, a very, very
spoof film.
A spoof film, yes, a very, very funny film played seriously. But what we ended up having here is, number one, a cast that has zero comedic chops at all. They don't know how to do comedy. They know how to do drama. They know how to do action. They know how to do horror. They don't know how to do comedy, because Alden Ehrenreich has probably one of the best conceptually gag scenes in the movie, and he does absolutely nothing with it, and everyone around him does nothing with it. That's when the mama bear passes out on top of him. And nothing. There was a chuckle, and then we were listening to try and see what was going to happen next, and nothing was happening. And that should have been a scene where everybody in the theater was in tears laughing at how crazy and ridiculous it was, and it was crickets.
And that's because of the actor not being able to pull it off?
That's the actor not being able to pull it off. That's the writer not actually doing anything with it. In addition, they have his friend, the black guy, is a character who he is very particular about his fashion and his cleanliness, and they kind of try to put him through the ringer, but he doesn't respond to it as someone who is very passionate about being clean and having nice clothes and all that stuff. He pushes it aside in favor of getting the job done. And it's like, you're just betraying your character. Every actor in this movie has what I like to call, and I mentioned this on my Patreon because I did review it and put it on my Patreon this morning, is called the Demi Moore syndrome. And this is when Demi Moore got cast to do Striptease, and she wanted to do it as a dramatic film when it was pitched as a crime comedy.
Right.
And she sticks out like a sore thumb in that movie because everybody else knows it's a comedy. They're playing it well. It's funny with them. But when she gets on screen, it's tonally different. And the tone is all over the place. And that's predicated on the fact that there's no jokes in this script at all.
But there are dramatic actors that are not joke killers. Tremors, which I'm sure you're familiar with.
Oh, yeah.
Is like almost a perfect movie.
Pretty
It's
much.
funny you mentioned that.
I would agree.
Kevin Bacon really has actually like a background in comedy prior to acting. He knows how to make and do jokes and things of that nature.
And Burt Ward knows how to play the straight guy, and he actually has good comedic timing as well.
Everybody was.
And the rest of the cast is made up of character actors who also are fairly well known for comedic acting.
We have a couple of them who are from Family Ties.
Exactly. And then also you got what's his face from Family Ties, and then
well, he knows what he's doing.
And Reba McEntire was her first acting performance.
She was great,
brilliantly in it.
Great,
like she is hilarious in the movie, and that's why she probably got that sitcom years later. I'll be honest with you.
And I thought in the back of my head that Cocaine Bear would be kind of Tremors.
I was worried it'd be Snakes on a Plane.
It should have been Tremors. You're right.
No, that's what I thought it should be.
But that's what script is describing, though. Script is describing exactly that. Basically, what Tremors is every, monster movie, but it's satire. Everybody in the movie is playing it fucking straight, right? But the humor is in the fact and the idea that it's these big fucking worms that are underneath the earth, and you can't make a noise, and they even hear your heartbeat and all this stuff. It's like, so there's tension there, but the comedy is in the performances, in the events, in the setups, in the payoffs. Script is right. Like the big payoff is you got, one of the greatest scenes is when you got Kevin Bacon running at full speed and he jumps over that dike and it runs into it and it goes, fuck you, that whole thing where he's like, we got you, the whole thing. Like that's one of the most brilliant scenes in the movie.
Well, what bogged down Cocaine Bear was the fact that they had too many characters and too many side stories because they're using it to fill up time because the writer doesn't actually have enough gags to play on the premise of a Cocaine Bear. Ideally, this type of movie would have been better if a third party had dumped the cocaine in Tennessee and two drug lords were going after it because one, it's theirs, and the other one wants to compete with it. So it's those two fighting each other at the same time. They're fighting off a bear that's addicted to cocaine that's trying to protect it. And then you got all the gags of them trying to one-up each other at the same time dealing with this bear. The whole park ranger stuff was completely useless and wasted. Even with the paramedic scene, it wasn't funny. The Carrie Russell, whom I adore, her subplot was boring. And the unnecessary flashbacks. There's a flashback where remember that guy that we saw? And then they cut to a flashback of a dramatic scene where where they find a dead body. And then they cut back to the thing, and they do that a couple of times. They do that.
Why would a movie like Cocaine Bear need a flashback?
It's just a little. It's a postcard vignette scene that's just stamped in there for 8 seconds.
It's not necessary.
It wasn't, but it was done for comedic effect. It just didn't land.
Almost.
See, this whole movie should have been told as a flashback from the guy Luis plays in Antman.
Look, it happened twice in the film. I agree with you, script, but you guys seem far more critical than I am of this film.
Here's the reason I'm critical is because you have an idea that is so great it almost markets itself. So you better deliver beyond that so that people really enjoy it. Right now, they used the idea as a crutch and phoned in the rest, and that is a disservice to the premise.
You know what this reminds me
of? You do something with Cocaine Bear, people are going to say, oh my God, that's so stupid. That's silly. I got to see it.
Yep.
But you don't stop there. You're like, what can we do we know that they're going to say it's silly. We know that they're going to want to see it once. What can we do to get them back in the seat again and again? And that's what you do. That's your relationship with the audience when you're dealing with a great premise. It's like, the premise is not enough. Like, concept is king is spoken quite often in Hollywood. The other part that's not often spoken, which is that execution is emperor. The better you do it, the more likely you're going to get those butts back into the seat. I think Cocaine Bear is going to make its money back. I think it's going to have maybe 2 more positive weekends, but I'd be surprised if anyone remembers this come October.
No, I'm with you. Like I said, it could have been far better. There were opportunities there to take this to the extreme in a very humorous way. I'm sure you and Chris Gore and
I would have added other animals and drugs, like
Cocaine
would be
owl.
LSD lizard.
You're talking about sequel level.
No,
stuff
no.
now.
So he surrounds himself with LSD lizard and crack crane.
Well, I'm telling you right now, my chat came up with a beautiful idea: Viagra vipers.
There you go.
I was gonna say,
On a
the thing
plane.
is
They can
I
never
agree with-
constrict you because they're
I've not
constantly
s-
erect.
I've never seen the film. Obviously, I wanted to go see it this weekend, but now I'm kind of glad I didn't, considering everybody's review, because it pisses me off. Because this movie should be what script is describing is a balls to the wall. Like I agree with you, Paul. The tone should have been in that Tremors kind of tone, to where it's kind of like, yeah, we're having some fun with this. Sure, the violence and stuff is a little serious, but it doesn't mean you have to stop everything and make it.
The bear
serious
has
at
to
that
disappear for long treks of time as people. I don't know how long the bear actually disappears, but I can imagine it should have gone away and had people anticipate where and when it's going to come and barricade and have to deal with where is it, and we don't know where it is, and suddenly of course it arrives.
It works in concept. You have a lot of the great cast, because that's the thing. Okay, what would I do? Well, obviously, if it was a pot comedy, you grab Cheech and Chong, right? Well, this isn't. It's a cocaine comedy. So who do you think of when you think of cocaine? Well, obviously, Ray Liotta and Goodfellas, and Al Pacino and Scarface, things of that sort. So you start to dig into
versus Ray Liotta over a cocaine bear. That's a movie.
That's what I'm saying. That you had the right idea script. What you're saying is should have been, right? And even if you have a shit script, which I agree, it's a big problem is the script, a smart director would go, fuck this script. This is what we're going to do. Okay. And you sit there and you work with the people you got, because the concept sells itself. You're right. All you got to do is make sure that every interaction with this bear is funnier than the last. No matter how, and if it's violent and extreme, you just take it to that next extreme. Think about if Monty Python were making this fucking movie and go, like just.
The initial premise is too funny for them. It's got to be like, Christ.
Well, script's right. You have to live up to the premise. That's the problem I'm hearing here, is that the movie is not living up to the idea. We could sit here and come up with a 90-minute film with this premise that is hilarious.
Well, obviously, the probably the clearest premise, and I don't know whether it's in the movie or not, I'm just doing this off the top of my head, is Ray Liotta getting madder and madder as the bear consumes more and more of his expensive cocaine. And he's going nuts, like, stop eating my fucking cocaine!
Yes.
That's what the movie should be about, and I take it it's not.
No, there's not. There's actually a subplot where Ray Liotta is watching his grandkid, and he's complaining that he has to watch him while he's trying to conduct business, but we never see.
For fuck's sake.
We never see
my
that.
God.
It's so much funnier if he is actually conducting business and he has his grandkid like count the money to make sure it's all there while he's handing out cocaine to his dealers, because that would be funny.
Yeah,
but they don't. They just have him sitting in like some sort of Chuck E. Cheese talking to his henchmen, being like, "Go get my son. Tell him to go out of this thing." And I'm sick and tired of watching his kid. And it's like, that's not funny. That's not a joke. I mean, the premise is funny, but they do nothing with it at all. I mean, I'm watching this and I'm thinking to myself, The Bear and the Great Outdoors was funnier and more intimidating than what I'm seeing on screen here.
That I'm getting already out of this. And you're right, because that would have been funny. Like right there's a good 15-20 minutes of a movie, is if you have a situation where, like you said, Ray Liotta sends out a guy to go drop off a deal and nobody hears from him. The buyers call back and they're like, the guy never showed up. So for the first like guy or two that he sends out, he's like, are these fuckers like screwing me over? What's going on? Till they finally realize that it's this bear that's getting them, or so, because where they decided to set up the deal. Like even something like that is a funny kind of premise on its own. And like Paul said, then it sets you up for that scene that would have been perfect in the trailer, where he goes, stop eating my fucking cocaine. And he's up because he's got to battle a bear.
And
you have a scene where like, just Ray's got to go, I've battled every single Colombian drug dealer, every this, that, and the other. And now I got to deal with a fucking bear.
Yeah, he snorts a line of cocaine, rips off his shirt, grabs a tree branch or a shovel. He's like, I'm killing this bear myself.
You just stole what I was going to suggest, you bastard. He's like, his life is falling apart, and he's he does a line of cocaine. The bear sees it. The bear's mad because now Leuda,
that's cocaine for him.
Yeah, it's less for him. He's mad. And Leota is just like, okay, and it's hand to hand. He's so
It's
furious.
Kirk versus Spock in a monk time, except it's a Ray Liotta versus a bear.
That's right. See, now, that to me should be the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're right, Cartoon Man. It has to be raining, so like the Coke is like draining away.
Getting
so
into
whatever.
the water supply. Now you get cocaine piranhas.
Yeah, you get cocaine piranhas. See, that's what I was saying, Paul.
Cocaine
you save the
chipmunk.
other animals for the sequel. You save the other animals for sequel because then it's Cocaine Bear versus whatever the fuck you want. Like,
Yeah, I mean,
But,
the humans get saved by cocaine gerbils or so, coming out of the woods suddenly.
But Culture, you enjoyed it for the most part. You had some of the same complaints, but you seem to enjoy it a lot more than everybody else did.
Yeah, seemingly, yeah, but that's fine. I mean, it's kind of, everything's going to hit differently. Like you said, I went with an older family member, and the two of us just we chuckled at all the most inappropriate places, which is exactly what you're supposed to do in this kind of film. And yeah. I got a kick out of it. Their script is 100% right. Paul's 100% right. Chris is 100% right. It could have been much better, but and again, I think Andre spoke to that in the video that was released today, and I would encourage all of you to watch that. There was absent in this was a good director, a competent director, and somebody who could take the wheel and maybe do some other things, outside of what the script called for. But regardless, this is a dumb fun film. And it shows that on a $35 million budget with, $20 some million worth of promotion, you're going to get, something that will make its money back plus more, and have people speculating about the future of, drug-addled animals. Like, for example, there's also a new film that's on the horizon, folks, I didn't know about until yesterday.
What is it, Meth Alligator or whatever?
Yeah, Meth Gator. Yeah, Meth Gator is on the way.
They filmed it at the beginning of the month.
Yeah, Asylum Films, I think it is.
Yeah. So, and again,
classic.
We'll see what happens.
Classic waiting to happen.
I can already tell you, it's going to be one of the worst things you'll ever see.
Oh, okay.
I'm sure it is script. I was being sarcastic.
Okay. Well, I was hoping for something.
I just can't get any further details than that, unfortunately.
I'm saddened to hear that the movie wasn't as good as it could have been. Especially after the promise of what was with just the title and the idea alone.
Hey, I got another angle. The bear is taken down by Hollywood elites who didn't get their cocaine supply because it got cut off by this deal. So they come after the bear.
The producer needs it in order to solve a problem to get a production done.
And actresses who can't work on the movie unless they're coked out. You don't understand what's happening. This is part of the Hollywood industry. We can't just let this bear eat everything.
I mean, the movie takes place in the mid-'80s, so that works.
Yeah.
They should have just gave Quentin Tarantino all the money to make this movie. Then it probably
would have been good. He would have.
I think he would have blown this out of the park.
I think
better that Norwegian guy you were saying, Andre.
Before we move on from this topic and move on to the movie that was almost beaten, or almost mauled, as it were, or definitely mauled anyway, Quantumania, I have one question here. Because I just want to hear what you guys think of it. In the opening of the movie, we see two backpackers. The male backpacker is definitely meant to be a Norwegian. If the female backpacker is meant to be Norwegian, I'm not so sure. But anyway, their names are Elsa and Olaf. That's what they refer to each other as. But then suddenly, in one scene, and this stuck out to me because I'm Norwegian, so these names are like nothing out of the ordinary for me. She slips up and she calls him Kristoffer. The name of the actor is Kristoffer.
Ah.
What? And they didn't even catch that?
Did no one catch that, or was that intentional, or what gives? Any thoughts on that?
Yes, they didn't care about post-production.
They should have looped the name.
because that could have been easily fixed in.
Oh, okay, all right. So it is this. Okay, they were both Norwegian. Okay, yeah. I honestly didn't know because I know the actress.
They're the two Norwegian people that Elizabeth Banks knew.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Well, that explains it then. She slipped up and she referred to her husband by his real name and not the character name, and no one caught it. And hell, Yellow Flash.
Yes, hello, Yellow Flash. How you doing?
Hell yeah.
We got Nina in the chat as well. So now I got a chance to say hello. But yeah, as Andre pointed out.
Oh, and the wife is Dutch. I just have to say that. Yeah,
okay.
because that's what I thought. Like, she didn't sound Norwegian to me, because when they talk about the name of their future child that will never be born now, and he wanted to name the child Ragnhild, she couldn't even say the name. So yeah, she didn't seem Norwegian.
Yeah, they also wasted the opportunity about the band for their wedding. It's all told. It's not funny. It would have been funny if he's listening to it on like a radio and we're hearing how terrible it is, and she's just like, I really don't want this for my wedding. He's like, but they're awesome. It's like, no, they're terrible because we know that they're terrible. Yeah, it was just too much telling.
Norwegians would be like death metal.
That wasn't invented yet in 1985, but
that's right. Yeah. This does take place in 1985. Was there anything that was like anachronistic or anything like that?
Well, really not much you can say of the interaction between a Norwegian husband and wife, even though it's meant to be in 1985. But the only thing was that there was a slip-up, and she referred to him by his real name, Kristoffer. Nothing else that I noticed at first glance. But let's move on from Cocaine Bear to the movie that was kind of mauled by Cocaine Bear, namely Antman and the Wasp: Quantumania, which suffered a drop of, let's just be honest, 70%. That is a greater drop, not much greater, but still greater, than was suffered by Batman v Superman. And that drop basically ended the Snyderverse. And it's on par with not the Incredible Hulk, but Ang Lee's Hulk from 2003, which kind of shocked Hollywood. That is this drop right here. I submit that this drop is so big, bigger than anything we've seen before, because it's a referendum on all of Phase 4. The opening was pretty tepid at just 104 million, and this drop is disastrous. But are we surprised? Mr. Gore, what's your take on the box office drop for Ant-Man?
Well, I mean, we talked about it earlier. I think that this is going to be the trend for all Marvel movies going forward. They'll never top the buildup of a decade of 3 phases towards Endgame. That will not be repeated, clearly. And I think that there is Marvel fatigue has set in. I think a lot of this fatigue has to do with the quality of the television shows. The quality of the TV shows has been low to just awful, right? And the fact that
I think the movies have been too, Chris, on both levels, really, if you think about it.
Well, if you take away the television shows, the movies don't stand out as being as bad. It's just there's too much. There's too much Marvel, and too much of it is just okay. Conception.
I agree with you. The TV series, what they did, they overexposed it.
They overexposed it. Like it wasn't special. It was special when a Marvel movie, we'd get 2 or 3 a year. 3 in a year was, oh my, we're getting 3 Marvel movies in a year. That's great. Truly, I think that, all the streaming shows, the Marvel streaming shows, it is really what helped run it into the ground. It would have been more interesting had we not seen all of those things. We're now so overexposed that Marvel fatigue, they ran the brand into the ground. And I think you're always going to see this is just going to be repeated for every Marvel movie. It's going to be big open, big drop. And it shows that the audience is shrinking. The interest from the audience is shrinking. Then you get something like an Avatar: The Way of Water. Haven't seen an Avatar movie in over a decade, and there's interest. This is different. It's the sense of spectacle. I mean, that movie is for normies. Okay. And there's nothing wrong with that. Hollywood needs more broad appeal, billion-dollar movies like Top Gun Maverick and Avatar: The Way of Water. To survive, they need that. And I don't think that that's going to be Marvel going forward. I also think that the politics of Disney has turned people off. Politics, Disney just stepping into politics, I think was a huge mistake. And then what it does is it makes you sort of look at every Marvel or Disney property, and you don't even have to pan for gold. You'll find it. you'll find messaging strewn throughout. It's like it stands out so overtly now, and it's off-putting. It's off-putting to, I think, a lot of members of the audience. I don't think they realize how much that's hurt them.
Well, and I brought this up here because these are the movies we've had since in Phase 4: Black Widow, Shang-Chi, Eternals, Doctor Strange, Thor, and Black Panther. If you take out the Spider-Man movies, so you can honestly say, aside from Spider-Man, these movies were good outside of the series, or at least not as bad. I mean, I get what you're saying, but I mean, I'd argue on both levels they have sucked. Like, that's my point.
Yeah, like, I mean, the Phase 4 movies were terrible. I mean, just across the. I mean, I think Wakanda Forever was my least favorite because of what it could have been. Eternals, a lot of people, claim that as being the worst, but it was weak overall. And frankly, looking back, Shang-Chi was probably the best of Phase 4 because at least it was something new and it had aspects of entertainment. The problem is Simu Liu is just so off-putting as an actor. His, off-camera shenanigans. He's kind of, I mean, I'm just going to say he's kind of a whiny bitch, Yeah,
he's the male Asian Brie Larson.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I don't know where that came from.
Me neither.
We've watched him up here for many years. He was a model, and then he acted in a very good sitcom up here, Kim's Convenience, and the level of arrogance that he's displaying now is kind of a shame. It's a surprise.
I call it the Disney pollution syndrome. I think that's just what happened because I've worked with him before, and he only had one issue, which is like negligible. In fact, he got mocked a lot by it for it, but he didn't repeat it again, and he hasn't repeated it since publicly, at least as far as I've seen. But yeah, as soon as he got that, it almost feels like screw you guys, I'm going over here attitude. And he
did kind of show his clause in the final season of Kim's Convenience, which didn't work particularly well, and he complained about how his ideas were never filmed as episodes.
Yeah,
and
having worked with him, he doesn't have very good ideas.
Well, listen, pretty much 99.9% of actors don't.
Yeah,
I have to say that. But the biggest mistakes probably I made was acquiescing to the talent. It never turned out well.
Yeah. But the other question here was, should Marvel get concerned? Because I've been saying that, frankly, Antman is just, the heart monitor going beep at this point. I'd say the real death was what Chris mentioned, and that was Wakanda Forever. I would say when that movie did not live up to not just expectations, but failed to even touch anywhere near $1 billion, to me, that was the sign that this thing's in trouble. Like,
I think actually this is a better sign. I think it's a better sign in the sense that it shows they have no idea what they're doing and they're not hip. So, for instance, Ant-Man should not have been in Quantum Universe. Louis should have been back. There should have been a heist movie. They just don't know how to repeat the previous successes. They draw all over the conceptual framework into the guardrails of stupidity. How's that for an idea?
Well, my point is that I wouldn't expect Ant-Man to do anything in the first place, right? Like, so Ant-Man isn't the problem here. It's just more of the symptom. The problem was looking at a movie like Black Panther that should have.
But they don't know what they're doing with their properties. First of all, Ant-Man should not have been any more than their previous movies, $100 million, $130 million budget. Simple, interesting. They have no idea what their individual properties are.
You're not wrong, Paul, but my point is this. Black Panther, the first one, was a cultural milestone.
Right.
Okay. The second one didn't even barely make $700 million.
No, it made 800 million.
Was it what was the final?
850 and change, I think.
Okay, so it's still underperformed.
Yeah, that's a hard argument. 800 million, notwithstanding the fact that they spent too much on it, if you separate those two things, I wouldn't use.
My point is this, though.
I wouldn't use.
Let me finish my point,
as an
please.
argument.
Let me finish my point, please. Every other Marvel sequel to this point had gone up.
Right.
Black Panther's the first time where it went down.
Yeah, but it was. I would pitch to you that was part of the malaise.
Yeah, that would be the Hollywood excuse. They would say that's part of the malaise. Yeah, but I mean, it's something that they wouldn't have had to have even reached for anyways if all the movies leading up to Black Panther were also huge box office hits. There's not enough of a contrast with regards to like Antman. They refused its initial premise that made it a marketable franchise. If they centered, say, the plot of Ant-Man 3 and the quantum realm and all that stuff around the fact that, let's say, AIM still exists, and they stole a device from Henry Pym that could get them into the quantum realm because they want to tap power. So now you have a heist movie where Ant-Man and co have to try and steal that back, and your mid-act turning point is that everyone gets thrown into the quantum realm, and that way you circumvent the idea of Michelle Pfeiffer's character not warning people about it because she already did. That's why AIM stole it, and they've given up on that part. And now it's like we got to fight our ways up because, again, that movie you could cut in half, but you just need more of the heist aspect of it. You need the gang, you need Luis, you need all those guys to set it up to let people know that this is the franchise within the franchise that you're comfortable with, and we're going to keep it that as the foundation. And now we're just going to push it a little bit closer to the bigger story that we're planning here at the tail end. But we want you to see that first half as this is your comfort food with your Ant-Man franchise.
But you can't have a galaxy-threatening bad guy again.
Yeah, and well, that's what happens when you start with Thanos so early. One of the things that I was kind of worried about is, they're doing Thanos, then where are they going to go from there? Because the Infinity Stones are very powerful. The only thing more powerful than that is someone who can manipulate every universe, and that would be Kang. And then when you're done with Kang, Galactus is nowhere near a threat level as Kang in that regard because he just eats planets.
Right.
So,
yeah. But
yeah,
I've always said that if they treated the movies the way they treated the comic books and went, okay, that's our Galacticus. Now we're going to go back to just some tiny little comic book.
Go back to domestic, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think the audience cares about connecting the Marvel Cinematic Universe together. I don't think they have any, they don't. It's no big deal. Look at Guardians of the Galaxy. They're kind of one-offs. They kind of connected them because they killed off Gamora. But I mean, I don't think they get comics. We're done with that series. Now we can go with the Ant-Man does cooking. I mean, the comics can take you anywhere. I mean, they did. They took you anywhere that they, choose to take you. Chosen to take whatever.
Choose to take.
Well,
it drives me nuts.
But see, this has been happening for a while because when you start adjusting the numbers for inflation in the box office,
right,
these sequels have started to underperform dramatically. Because if you look at the difference between Ragnarok from 2017 and Thor: Love and Thunder, you have a substantial difference financially if you adjust for inflation because there's been a 19.4% change. So you first of all, globally, Ragnarok beat Thor: Love and Thunder soundly, 850 million to 760 million. But if you just look at the domestic numbers, again, Ragnarok beats soundly in today's dollars Thor: Love and Thunder, like by 30 some million dollars. I mean, it's not even close. And you look at that as a pattern and you're seeing all of these films underperform. They're selling fewer tickets. And, Chris was talking about that earlier when we were starting to get into this. While we don't have a direct calculation of the difference in tickets, butts in seats, like you can do movie to movie, because and we don't really know the price adjustments without doing a lot of math when it comes to, the ticket prices, because NATO refuses to do anything with it after 2019 because they don't want to show that, for example, a $1 billion+ film in the United States or globally for the $700 million that Maverick collected, let's say, they only sold 64.4 million tickets. Versus if you go back in time to something that film was compared to as far as being like a wake-up call to the box office, which let's say is Titanic. Do you realize that for the money, the 659 million domestic that money Titanic made in its initial run, do you realize that they sold 146.2 million tickets in the United States alone? So this is telling you that you don't need as many tickets. You don't need as many butts and seats to make these numbers. So they've lost 70% of their audience. I mean, over the course.
That's close to my estimate too, Culture.
So when you end up with a 70% drop at the box office, where you've already lost a significant portion of the audience. And by the way, do you know who has the most enthusiasm for action films like this, comic book films? It's young men in that prime category, that 25 and up demographic, right? They've lost those people. They're losing them dramatically. And when you see that, this next year, 2023's theme report that comes from, the MPAA, that's going to be rather revelatory when it comes to these blockbuster films. And it was again last year. So every time I look at those reports, I'm like, wow, the demographics are substantially shifting like they want them to, but not the way they want them to. You're losing the audience. You're not gaining more female audience. You're losing a male audience. You're losing you're losing the consumer of the goods, the gear porn that you like to refer to, Paul. That all the franchise licensing items, T-shirts, the silly plastic toys that we all collect, all that stuff. You're losing them. And not only that, if you lose them, you lose their kids. And this is the same thing that happened to Star Wars, and why Star Wars is going to.
It's worse than what happened to Star Wars, and this is where I was going to come in here, Culture, because this is why I keep bringing this up. And I think you're right. My estimate is more around 65%. Yeah. I'll be a little bit more generous to them. Sure. I'll give them the extra 5%.
Sure.
But this is what I was trying to get to, Paul, as you see here, and that's what I think Culture's getting at. If you take out the Spider-Man films, which Andre has already done for us here, and you look at it, Doctor Strange is the only movie since Endgame that has technically performed where it kind of should have, right? Look, like Ant-Man, technically Ant-Man 3 opened bigger than Ant-Man 2. So, and that's why I keep going back to Black Panther being the moment where I think this is where we can point at and say, that's where this is definitely has a problem now. I don't know if Andre gets what I'm saying or not, but.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's kind of like the point where the curve shifts and where the audience throws their hands in the air and says, enough. And it goes to the point that you were making earlier, Culture, that it's the traditional core fan base. They are the ones who are leaving. And then, of course, you're going to have like a more diverse audience left, if you will. But the ones that left were the ones that spent the money. And Tom, you also made a point about earlier, which I think is relevant here. That from Ant-Man 2 to Ant-Man 3, there still was some level of growth because Ant-Man is like a C-list property.
Even if it was
Black
artificial.
Panther to Black Panther 2, there wasn't.
Even if it was artificial, like Culture was saying with the box office. But yeah, like with Black Panther 2, there was a clear problem there. Like you were not getting the audience you had initially with the original Black Panther. Of course, we could argue that Doctor Strange also had the benefit of Spider-Man No Way Home as a lead-in. That's the other thing it had, kind of like with Captain Marvel. And that's going to be the other thing when the Marvels comes out. That's the other comparison I'm going to look at, because Captain Marvel managed to make $1 billion, and a lot of us argued the only reason that fucking movie made $1 billion is because of it being smack dab in between Infinity War and Endgame, and them giving us this supposed idea that it was supposed to have some big deal to do with Endgame when it really didn't. And then the same thing with Ant-Man, and that's where I think people checked out of Ant-Man 2 so much more, is they felt burnt by Captain Marvel. Yeah. So when the Marvels underperforms even more probably than Black Panther does in comparison to Captain Marvel, then I think that's when four alarm fire time happens at Marvel. I could be wrong, but at that point I know they've got to start saying like something is wrong here and we got to write this now. But Chris is also right. They've oversaturated this.
100%.
Between the shows and the movies, they've oversaturated it to the point where they haven't had enough good stuff. We've had 2 Spider-Man movies that you could argue have been the only successes since Endgame. And I'm even somebody who stuck up for the first Spider-Man movie. I didn't like the second one so much, but they were just lucky that third one was a massive success for them. Because if it wasn't for that, I think that franchise would have also took a downturn.
You're talking about the one with Mysterio?
Yes, a lot of people didn't care for that one.
I like that one way better than the first Tom Holland one.
It just depends. It seems like, yeah, I was gonna say, it seems like people who liked the first one didn't like the second one. People who didn't like the first one liked the second one.
Well, they're wrong.
You know, when it comes to Spider-Man 3, everybody pretty much liked it. So like, whatever. Regardless, there was at least an uptick for Spider-Man Far From Home, and then a huge uptick for No Way Home, right? And each one of these sequels, you've always seen an uptick. Even with Thor: Love and Thunder, it still performed to a point, roughly, whether or not you figure like what the culture is saying with the inflation aspect, on roughly the same level.
Well, it exhausted the goodwill of Ragnarok is what it did.
Well, and it did, and the same thing happened with Black Panther and Wakanda Forever, the two films. Again, you see the inflationary gap of nearly, well, a substantial amount of money. Let's say you see that because it's kind of the same year, right? It's 2018 to 2022. And when you look at those dollars and, the 16%, 15%, whatever it was, inflationary difference between those two films, these things are miles apart as far as domestic and global performance. They are losing butts in seats. They are not pulling people into the theater. Right. And now you really are going to have to completely retool and rebuild and probably get rid of all the creative you have in Marvel and start anew with actual creative. If you want these things to come back, should they be concerned? Flip, yes, they should be. I was laughing at it this morning in the 6 Minute Daily. I'm like, you guys don't even grasp the ball. Investors are smarter than this. They're going to figure out the same thing that we've been talking about. And they're going to be like, you know what? All these crazy guys that are talking on the internet, they're freaking right. And they owe us a whole lot of money. You do. And I'm willing to forgive the underperformance of Black Widow and, the Magic Bracelet guy and, the other film that was in there that was like Diversity, the movie by Marvel.
The Eternals.
Yeah. So
there was a one-off. So
they're going to try to make a second one, Paul, but we'll get into that conversation later.
Oh.
Yeah. But those three films, I'm willing to give you that's the last vestiges of the quote unquote pandemic excuse that I'm willing to hear. Right. From that point forward, we saw films perform wonderfully well, conversant with interest. Right. But with this other stuff, I'm like, nah, that was it. I'm going to draw the line there. And from that point forward, you needed to actually earn people's business. And they're not doing it in Hollywood.
Well,
they haven't done it in a long time.
Well, after Endgame, I am on record to saying that if I was running Marvel, I would have gone total Roger Corman. And just had many small victories. I think the issue is that they thought that they could every movie was going to be Endgame, and they were going to spend $200 million plus on every single one because they're all going to work. And philosophically, I believed at the time it was completely the wrong thing to do because you could never match what Endgame did. So you go completely in the opposite direction. You make them,
which I thought they were doing with things like Homecoming and stuff like that. I
didn't think it was that inexpensive.
And then they went completely off the rails. But
Homecoming was Spider-Man. Don't even include that.
Right. Yeah.
Well, we technically have to because it's still the same people making it. Just because they deliver it to Sony, that's the only difference.
Well, okay, whatever. Someone at Sony.
They managed. Well, no, it's just they've managed to work with Spider-Man differently than they have the other characters, even within the limitations that Amy Pascal has put upon them. But we're losing Chris here in a few minutes, so I really want to grab his take on this before he does have to go.
Well, my take is, if you had told me when I was a kid that not only would they make an Ant-Man movie, they'd make a third Ant-Man movie, and I would be bored. I mean, that's it's sad. I mean, look, I think Marvel's best days are behind it. I think they should have had the brand go away for a couple years, rebooted in the past with the 1960s, 1960s versions of the characters. You could have had Hank Pym. You could have had the Fantastic Four in the 60s. You could have had the X-Men and just did a hard reboot of the whole universe, because if you're not going to bring back the sort of heart and soul of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which to me were represented by Steve Rogers and Tony Stark, if those characters are gone, the Marvel Cinematic Universe going forward is not as interesting.
Right.
I mean, for, as much as I love Paul Rudd as Ant-Man, he is a sidekick character who is there for comic relief, and he does a great job at that, but he doesn't have the gravitas of a Tony Stark. And the stakes seemed low or undefined in Ant-Man 3. And it was what's the point? There's millions of Kangs, so I guess we defeated one. And so where is this leading? I felt with the first, phases 1, 2, and 3, we knew with phase 1 we were leading to Avengers. And then from Avengers, we knew we were leading to conflict, right? Civil War. And then we knew we were leading to the big bad, which was Thanos. I don't know what phase 4 was about. We know it's leading to Kang, but it doesn't seem to have the weight of the events from those first 3 phases. So
they needed a Kang opener.
They needed a Kang opener. also, they need to realize that this is a boys. Someone else brought it up earlier. Might have been you, Script. This is a brand for boys. Boys and
no, that was Culture.
Yeah, Culture. Sorry, this is a brand for boys and also men. And it's look, a lot of the fans are older men like myself who grew up reading the comics and are well familiar with the comics, not the newer incarnations. And getting away from that, I think, is hurting it. It's
it's well documented that Disney was known as a kind of a girl brand, a young girl brand, and by bringing Star Wars and Marvel in, they now have the boys brand. But the people who bought the properties didn't realize they were handing it to a bunch of people who hated men.
Yeah,
and didn't know how to sell to men.
No,
Kathleen Kennedy, feminist, fourth wave feminist.
But I hate saying it like this, but I think Bob Iger went in with the right intentions of getting Marvel and Star Wars. But what happened was that fucking cultural shift in the meantime that is where we're at now, basically. Like, that's what happened, is because you look at it, the Marvel Universe did start out doing what it was meant to do. Even the first couple of years at Disney, even though there was some, downturn in the quality as soon as that happened, it still was decent for 4 or 5 years now, up until Endgame or whatever it was. And then at that point, that's where you start to see the cracks start to form. And really, you can almost point at that one scene where they have the female Avenger scene, where it makes absolutely no sense that all the women are together all of a sudden, despite the fact that they were miles apart before. Like that whole thing. It's like, yeah, you forced that in there. Even so many people noticed that, right? Like that was one of the points where they noticed it. And even Captain Marvel, there was a few points, but yeah, Chris, at this point, do you think that Marvel should be worried? Should they be concerned, like the headline said?
Yeah, for sure. They should have been worried at the beginning of phase 4. And I think perhaps should have had a better plan. And part of that plan should have been going away for a couple years,
Yes.
I think, looking at how George Lucas handled the brand of Star Wars, he would do a bunch of stuff and then go away, do a bunch of stuff and then go away. He took a big break between the original trilogy. And then, in the early 90s, it was about building up video games and the extended universe and, books like Heir to the Empire, which should have been the Star Wars sequels. I find it funny that, J.J. Abrams, in a recent appearance, I saw the movie RRR at the TCL Chinese Theater a couple months ago, and J.J. Abrams was introduced to introduce the director S.S. Rajamouli, and people booed J.J. Abrams. This is in his hometown, so I think he's damaged from the experience of having done Star Wars, and nobody and people. It's mainly looked poorly upon, by fans on all sides, right? Like that last movie was just terrible. How they decided to release that should have been something that should have been retooled, or look, it was ill-conceived from
they're still shooting it, Chris.
well, look, with modern AI, they say AI is just going to take over. You could make a satisfying version of the Star Wars sequels using AI with Han, Luke, and Leia in a scene together. You could do that technically. So,
wasn't there a rumor that Lucas did a cut of the final movie that was the most well received by test audiences?
We heard a few different versions of that. The closest I would even believe, if, and this is a big if, it was even remotely true, is he may have given a few notes.
Right.
That's about it.
I doubt that's true at all. It's a lot of fans want that. I think fans would love to see George Lucas back involved in Star Wars. That was the first thing I said when I saw the first Force Awakens. I said to myself, this is missing George Lucas. Something about this, the magic of Star Wars, something about the plot and plot twists, and J.J. Abrams with this stupid mystery box, which I think
George had the right idea. I mean, even though some people balked at what he said, I think he was right in insinuating that he should still be running this thing. Disney just owns it.
Well,
right? Because that was his initial plan. And then he would just, but anyway, sorry.
No, what I was going to say is the mystery box is hollow. It's empty.
Oh, of course.
I got to run, but always great to talk to you on Monday. I'll see you next Monday. And
we love you, Chris.
Another thing about Star Wars that I find interesting. A week ago, I should have received a review copy of at least the first episode, if not first few episodes of The Mandalorian Season 3. I haven't received it. Alan hasn't received it. And I don't know of any other journalists that have received it. That's telling. Something's going on. It's either a shift in strategy or lack of confidence in The Mandalorian Season 3. By the way, it premieres in 48 hours and none of us are talking about it.
Oh, yeah, it does. Holy shit.
Not only that, they've actually advertised that episodes are going to be shorter in length than the previous seasons.
Ooh, this is dead, kids. Nobody's talking about it at all.
So all I'm saying is Mandalorian, the biggest, probably the most Star Wars like of anything that's been released. And here we are, days away. Nobody cares. As far as I can tell, no review copies. Wouldn't critics be saying, I've seen the first 3 episodes?
You're right, Chris. We should be getting all the.
And I can't say anything, but let me just say, I grew a Grogu watching it. Okay, that's a weird thing.
But they would say that. But no, you're right, Chris. We should have been getting reviews already last week.
We should have been getting correct. Where's the media or on social media? Like, I can't really say anything as I'm under embargo, but let me just say, the typical thing that everybody says. Nothing. Not a word, not a peep.
The big promo, I'm just at the Disney Channel. It's Star Wars The Mandalorian, Season 3 coming March 1. Catch up on the series.
Right.
That's it. That's exciting. Catch up on the series. Whoa.
Well.
Let me just grab my Heinz right now. And,
my loins are on fire.
It may in fact be good, but perhaps strategically they've shifted, knowing that the early buzz sometimes hurts it. There was like a scene that, it didn't leak. It was officially released that looked just sort of whatever. Grogu grabbed some candy. I don't know. And what's so funny is the fact that they just abandoned the whole, I'm going to hand Grogu over to Luke for training. And that lasted a few episodes.
I have another theory. I wonder if part of it, obviously they're worried about the show and the reviews and stuff. I don't think they're worried about good buzz ruining it. I wonder if they're just trying to save money on advertising and shit. They don't have the money.
That's probably true too, is they don't have dollars for marketing, but to send stuff to critics is not a huge investment. So
that's where it gives me pause, because you're right. Cause that's free advertising.
Yeah. So so that is very telling to me. I wonder if they'll just debut with a 25-minute episode with 9 minutes of credits and a post-credit scene and then leave it at that. Like it seems like there's a lack of enthusiasm. And Star Wars Celebration is coming up as well. It'll be overseas this time. I will not be in attendance, but it just looks Like the rumor is they're going to announce a movie. They can announce whatever they want. They've announced a lot of things that haven't happened. So wasn't there supposed to be a Lando series or a Lando movie or whatever?
Supposed to
It's
get
like
a lot of stuff.
the list of things that they've announced of Star Wars that haven't happened is longer than the list of things that have. That'll tell you something. I got to run. I'll see you next week.
Thanks.
So take
Chris.
care,
for joining
everybody.
us.
Bye,
Thanks
Chris.
again. I need more
Bye,
coffee.
Chris.
All right, take care. Bye now.
Oh, I think I'm on cup 4 of coffee, so I feel where he's coming from.
I'm done.
Wow. That was funny. And you know what? I didn't even realize that we were this
Yep.
close to Mando.
Me neither.
Yeah.
I
Huh.
don't think anyone does. I don't think there's much awareness for it.
It's a confused company. I've been saying this all along. There's nobody there who knows how to have fun with their toy called Disney.
Well, it doesn't help that it's been, what, 2 years since we've had Mando?
No, I'm not even talking about that. I'm going way back. You know, one of the great things about, well, Disney under Disney and or Pixar under Lasseter, you just there's people who you felt that this is their toy and they're going to have fun with it. And there's just the Disney is just, I think they're so afraid. It's like a any kind of sports franchise that goes out onto the field not wanting to score on themselves by accident. They're so fearful of everything now. You can't run a business that way.
Yeah. STR Red Wolf said, get all the coffee to Gordok now. Well, I
Yes.
think that's where he's headed off
Yes,
to,
that's
to
right.
get some coffee. Thank
Yeah.
you, STR Red Wolf. Sorry, I didn't get to mention that while he was here, but
He's
thank
going
you
to be
once
crushed
again.
to have not seen it.
But yeah, so let's see what the chat is saying here. Let's get into a few of these super chats. Bamagrad says, hail to all. Andre and Tom, I trust you've read my email. I hope it did some good. And Culture, I have photos to send you. Got a P.O. box yet? Hint. Well, send your P.O. box to
I will.
Culture. Send it to him.
I will.
And Bamagrad, I apologize, actually. I did not feel good last night. So right after the show, I went and I crashed. I crashed hard.
I've read it though, and
yeah.
amazing job. We'll get back to you soon. It's because
Sounds good.
he went and he hung out with Martin Cobb, didn't he?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I
So,
remember
yeah.
seeing the initial stuff. So like I gave him the thumbs up on that. So
Yeah, I
Yes.
told you Shadow Chaser was going to be a winner.
there you go. And then we've got Master Clockwork here who says the sequel to Cocaine Bear will be Cocaine Twink. No, I think it's Rehab Bear. And then Cocaine Bear 3 Relapse.
Yeah.
And then the
I think Cocaine
reboot is
Bear
going to be
Forever.
yeah. And then eventually down the line, it's going to be the reboot Cocaine Twink when they decide that the Cocaine Bear needs to go woke.
Well, I mean, it would be funny if Cocaine Bear is then, once he's been rehabbed, goes to a zoo and then gets everybody addicted, all the other animals addicted, and then they make a breakout. See,
Kind of like
lots
in
of fun
Planet
you
of
can
the
do.
Apes.
Yes.
Yeah. Snakes and Funerals says yes. Paul Chato for head of YouTube.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm
Better than
there.
Daddy Susan, I'm sure. Jeff C says script and Chato. You need to write a script for Mushroom Moose.
Yeah, the Vancouver episode. Yeah, we'll do
you guys
it.
would know mooses. Is it is moose plural? Is it mooses or is it meese?
Moose are also plural.
Yeah, it's singular and plural, just like Jedi.
That's right.
Yeah,
So this
like
would
Jedi.
be the
So it's
Haida
not
Gwaii.
Jenny?
We'd have the Haida Gwaii involved.
Mhm.
This could be absolutely awesome. And the noises moose make, oh my God.
Yeah.
We were out in the woods in Cape Breton, right in the middle of it, and a moose was following us the entire way. And then in the morning, we got up and we were looking out at a lake, a mining lake, a logging lake, and there in the middle, a moose raised itself up and snorted water as we're drinking coffee at 7 a.m.
And imagine it on magic mushrooms.
There you go. Yeah, and you almost force you to knuckle under.
I'm there. And that is all for you, Paul. So thank you for being here.
Yep,
We
I
appreciate
gotta go.
you
Bye,
getting
Paul.
to hop in. And was there anything you wanted to plug on your way out the door?
Just my latest video. I'm quite proud of it. it's a fun one.
Me
The
too.
Hollywood Complainers.
Yep.
I thought had some good ideas in there. So watch
It's a
that.
very good video. Check it out.
Thank you very much. So long, everyone.
He's close to 100,000 folks. If you're not subscribed to Paul Chato,
Yeah.
do so.
Yeah.
Call me.
What number are we at now?
I'm at about 25. I'm about 2,200 away.
Very
Okay.
close.
Yeah,
And
Very
change.
close. Very close. My
Very
life will
close.
change with the plaque.
Inside of a month, then we'll be having the celebration.
Hope so. Talk to you later, everyone. Bye.
All right. Take care.
Take care. Speaking of celebrations, we have a mod and a fellow friend of the channel who's celebrating a birthday today. 70s rock fan, if he's listening. Happy birthday, my friend. He has a little birthday celebration going on his channel this afternoon.
Yeah.
So hopefully you guys can join him and wish him a happy birthday. I hope to hop in there and say happy birthday to him. But he got Bat Tom treatment last night on Culture's channel.
He did, yeah. The Bat Tom made a special late guest appearance to sing happy birthday to our favorite Scotsman trapped in Canada.
Well, he was actually wide awake because it was the middle of the night. So like he was on fire. He was just,
he's celebrating his 90th birthday. So congratulations.
Yes, he just turned 91.
Yeah. He's
At the
aging.
end of the show, he'll be 98.
There you go. He's only turning
Thank you.
60, by the way. So yeah.
Thank you for all your help, 70s rock fan, and happy birthday, my friend.
There you go.
Hopefully you get at least a dozen more. We can't hope for much more than that. No, I'm just kidding. We always give him shit. That's what that's about.
Yep.
Yes. What about Mike's birthday? What did that say? Sorry, I just accidentally hit that.
That apparently it's Mike's birthday around here too.
Really?
When?
Well, I have to look that up.
I'm trying to remember. I don't think it's now, though. Because didn't we just have his birthday not that long ago? It's like a couple months back.
I think we just celebrated him bouncing off the top of that van.
I never know. We celebrate so much stuff for Mexican Iron Man. I forget.
We do. Yeah.
But we love him, so we can just have a celebration just to celebrate him. We could do that. Matthew W. says, I grew up with TNG, but always rewatched DS9. There you go. Garfield's Bizarre Adventure says, Ant-Man 3 gives off Spy Kids 3 vibes. The overly CGI environment, the outfits, the protagonist, even the villain had variants of himself. As far as the environments, those who had seen it said that you could kind of tell it was shot on the volume stages.
Quite obviously, yeah.
Don't get me started on complaining about Ant-Man and all the recent Disney Marvel stuff. I'm hating it so much. The aesthetic is garbage. They don't bother to blend in the volume with any of the CGI effects or even any of the physical things that they have in place. It is frustrating.
Look, I don't have a problem with TV shows using volume, but I think it's kind of cheap for a movie to be doing it. Andre, sorry, go ahead. You were going to say something.
I was to say, I do have to say that the Quantum Realm is ugly. Eyesore.
Which is sad, because I would say that the first Ant-Man movie is one of the best 3D movies ever. Like, for 3D experiences. And it's the second and third one, I can't say. Well, I haven't seen the third one, but the second one was just kind of boring. Because the multiverse or inner space or whatever the hell you want to call it looks just like outer space. So there's no...
That's probably more accurate, though.
Yeah.
I accepted that more. Like, here you're supposed to be shrunk down to quantum size. Really shouldn't be too much down there. Empty space, dust and stuff like that. That sounds about right. Whereas,
dust particles the size of your head, but yeah.
Yeah, whereas going down, you find like all these mini people and everything. Yeah, I know that they did that in the comics with like the Jarella's world and the Hulk and everything like that, which was Harlan Ellison, if I'm not too mistaken. But I have a hard time going with that in live action.
Well, no, I get what you're saying.
Just keep shrinking further down then to the atom level of that world, since you're at it.
No, I get what you're saying, Andre, but at least in the first movie, there was like almost a sense of scale, in a sense. Like, and, and it had that kind of Honey, I Shrunk the Kids element to it because it was in our world mostly. And, you could see things in like the bathtub scene and all that kind of stuff. That was all fun to see in 3D. The second movie is just like watching a movie that's in space. So I can imagine it's probably the same kind of shit with the third film too. I don't know. But,
Yeah.
as far as the variance thing, yeah, he doesn't seem like he's a very formidable foe. So there better be a bunch of them.
Yeah, of course, because like basically he got his ass handed to him by Antman, and he's definitely not the most formidable Avengers. So I have to say, like, so far it doesn't. He doesn't seem really threatening, or any of them. They all seem like a bunch of freaking clowns, to be honest. Kang is so overrated. Like I almost get like annoyed with the overhyping. He doesn't come across as a threat in the slightest because it's just like too much to accept with him.
They're using this you trying to hype him up in Creed 3 as well.
Yeah.
But
well, he looks more threatening there. I have to.
Well,
say.
Paulie made some arguments that he has some roles that are powerful, like in Devotion and stuff like that. I'm actually going to watch Devotion this.
Oh, I'm sure he's good, but I just don't. I haven't seen it here, with the way that these Rick and Morty writers have treated him, or what they have given him to work with.
Yeah.
Then Mario Trillo says, you want to know how bad Marvel screwed the pooch with Kang? They already had a map drawn out for them in an animated cartoon of how to bring him in.
Oh yeah, Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes cartoons. 2 seasons, quite good. Highly recommend.
I'm still reeling.
Still going on.
I'm still reeling that Mandalorian's 3 is out or is coming out in 2 days, and I didn't even realize. That's bananas. Yeah. I don't think Kang was interesting in the film. I don't think Kang was interesting prior to the film from the Loki show. I don't think anybody cares. And the problem is that he wasn't built up. They're continuing in script. Correct me if I'm wrong, but they're continuing to try to catapult or backdoor pilot basically a bunch of characters nobody's heard of or cares about into all these shows and films that, again, it's not. There's no development there. I mean, how
they're not giving it the effort it needs. I mean, there's nothing wrong with backdooring piloting other characters in the Marvel universe because there's many of them. The problem is that are you going to put in the effort you did with Black Panther in Civil War?
Right.
Where you make us be like, oh, we want to see more of this guy or this girl or whatever. We haven't been getting that. They're too heavily relying on the brand as opposed to realizing that the brand is only as strong as the people and characters you support. And they did a huge disservice to everybody in Phase 4. I mean, the Eternals could have been good, even though I'd never liked them in the comics to begin with. But they could have done something good with that, but they didn't. They could have done something great with Shang-Chi. They didn't. And Black Widow is the most horrendously abused of them all, because after seeing her in Iron Man 2, everybody's like, we want a Black Widow film.
Yeah.
And if they did it at that point, we probably would have gotten a fantastic one.
Yeah.
Yeah, too little, too late by the time we did. G-Dog sends in a thumbs up. Thank you so much, G-Dog. Hit that thumbs up if you haven't done that already. We appreciate that. Buff Geek says, any thoughts on the canceling of Dilbert? I did not hear that they had done this.
Yes, I heard about
any
this.
Specific reason for it, or just...
Yes, the author of Dilbert, Scott Adams, he has his podcast, which you can also find right here on YouTube. I do not recall the name, like the Real Coffee with Scott Adams or something like that. And in it, I haven't seen this episode, so I do not know exactly what was said. But I think we can reasonably assume it was taken completely and utterly out of context. But anyway, he said something, I think, something pertaining to Black people in one way, shape, or form. And more details than that, I do not know. But what basically happened is like this like corporate publisher, the one that puts his syndicated comic in all the magazines and everything, they had a freak out, and they decided to withdraw Dilbert from all the from certainly all the newspapers that they.
Okay, I remember hearing about this now.
Yeah,
I know what he said. He basically had insinuated that more crimes are committed by a certain group of people. in so many words.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, this was.
Yeah, because I remember
this was,
somebody bringing this up. I think it was last night.
Yeah, that basically then cost him most of his Dilbert engagements in newspapers. So he can still write and publish Dilbert, but basically he's going to have to comicsgate it and do it on his own, self-publish.
Yeah, that sounds like a sticky situation.
Yeah.
We got John Evan Bear, who says, how much do you want to bet that the critics are praising Jonathan Majors' performance in Ant-Man 3 because he is black? Well, I don't know about that.
Got some good performances in his background, but that seems kind of a reach at this point, but not implausible. But I don't know. I have my reservations on that.
I haven't seen him in enough roles to comment, but like Paulie was saying last night, he's a great actor and this other stuff. So, I mean, Andre wasn't as impressed with his performance.
Well, here's the thing. I don't really. He has nothing to work with. That's the thing.
I was gonna say I don't think that's the actor's fault in the movie. I was gonna say is I think it's just, and I think the reason he's getting so much praise is because the movie's so fucking bad. To be honest with you, is what I was going for. Is I think that the movie is so bad that he's the only good thing they can say anything about.
He's the best part in it, but I'm going to be honest. I thought he was 10 times as good in Loki as he was in this.
He was more interesting in Loki. The thing is that he can act stoic and maniacal quite well, at least in Ant-Man 3. But when he tries to do the rage stuff, it doesn't come across intimidating as it should. And I don't know if that's just out of his wheelhouse or if it's bad editing and bad writing and in a culmination with that and cheap special effects. I don't know. But when he was doing his monologue stuff and his manipulation and his intimidation stuff without losing his cool, that was good. I thought that was well performed.
Yeah. Again, I don't have any issue with his performance. My issue is simply with the way that he's written. And because of the way that he's written, I'm not able to assess how he is as an actor, because I don't see like enough range or anything to work with. And also in the video that we published earlier today, our post-mortem of Quantumania, do check it out if you haven't seen it yet. I also bring up some comments made by the writer who. I don't want to be insulting or anything, but he sounds like a blithering idiot based on like.
Oh no, you're not being insulting. That's actually being nice.
Not only that, the other part too is that he was talking about trying to get the audience on the side of Kang, the villain.
I know. This is the one that made me fucking go, what the fuck is this idiot talking? This is the problem with Marvel writing right now. Is like they want you to fucking associate with the villain. It's like, these people are not the people you should be sympathizing for. These are the people you should be rooting for to be destroyed. Like, what the fuck are you doing? This explains Doctor Strange, all right.
This is why I brought up that. Well, that was written by Michael Waldron and not by this guy. But anyway,
no, but it explains like their mentality in the writers' room. Is my point.
Yes, they're all fucking Rick and Morty level fools. Like that's why I brought up like these comments. Like, what the hell can poor Jonathan Majors do when he's working with a writer who thinks that Caesar is remembered for his mistakes and his failures?
That's like 4 or 5th down on the list of what Caesar's remembered for.
Exactly. That's my point exactly. And this guy, he said it to the Hollywood Reporter that, in his view, Caesar is everyone. I do it wrong. The name is Caesar. That's how you're supposed to say it.
I say actually, Caesar's more well known for being betrayed than anything.
Exactly, but was that a defeat in terms of like?
No, that's betrayal. That's not defeat. That's betrayal. I mean, yeah, he's defeated because of it, but I mean, it's it's a bigger thing than the defeat itself.
He's the one that made the Roman Empire into the Roman Empire. So yeah, and this guy thinks that he's remembered for his defeats as much. Jesus, I mean, that guy. That's what I mean. Like, it's not Jonathan Major's fault. He's overhyped. Oh, that he definitely is. He is someone that Hollywood is trying to make happen. But that doesn't mean that he's whether good or bad. It only means that he's the it guy in this moment that they tried to make a huge star. But he can't do it. Not with scripts from this blithering idiot. Script, where are you? Why are you not there? Showing them their ropes.
Terrible laws in California.
I was just going to say, because they won't let him in.
Yeah.
Well,
and even if they would, I don't know if they'd let him into Marvel anyway, because he's probably the wrong color, wrong sex, and has too many good ideas.
Yeah, especially that latter part. You're going to make everyone else there look like an idiot or expose them for the idiots they are. They don't want that.
Yeah, that's actually kind of hurt my career since I started.
No, and I know we're kidding, but at the same time, I'm not joking. I think that's part of the reason, like, the part of the reason that they made Walter Mosley feel so unwelcome in the STD writers' room, because they probably saw him more as competition than anything else, and they just used that as an excuse to get rid of him.
Yeah, they saw here's someone with some real life experience, and us millennials, we don't have that. So let's get rid of this problematic old man who makes us all feel unsafe with his wording.
Well, not only that, any idea that they bring up, and he says, okay, well, we have to work it to make it, a sounder idea, and it ends up being destroyed. Like, what they were to say, well, what if Michael Burnham was a key to everything? He would be more likely to think of, well, let's make her important, but let's not make her God. And they probably would be resistant to that, in which case they would then start saying, this guy isn't going to cooperate with what direction we want to do, so we're just going to find any reason we can to get him out. And, I mean, Walter Mosley left that job. Like, that's one thing.
He didn't get fired, to be clear.
But he left that job because he's like, I'm not working with these people, because he probably realized more earlier on than the rest of us, if he did work with them, they could use that association to further their careers, and his name on that product might actually damage his. So he walked away like a very smart, dedicated.
Yeah, he didn't even mention who it was in his. I don't think he ever did mention who it was.
No,
they took responsibility for it. It was CBS themselves. But anyhow, in that note, like, yeah, I agree with you there, and I think that's probably the case. And we have a similar situation with Marvel now in their writing room as they did over there, I imagine. And yeah, if you even got somebody like Script in the room, they'd probably HR his ass out the door if they could. So
they'd have to make something up, but yeah.
No, exactly. They'd come up like, well, that's what I'm saying. That Walter Mosley thing was bullshit. He didn't even get fired, like you said.
Yeah.
But it bothered him enough because he's like, first of all, why am I getting a call from HR and not Kurtzman or Goldsman? This is bullshit, kind of thing. Because that's what he said. I don't think he mentioned them by name, but he said the showrunners. He's like, I didn't get any calls from the showrunners. Why am I getting a call from HR department? I don't work that way, basically, in so many words. He's like, if somebody's got a problem with me, then they should just take it up with me and not like this kind of thing. He's old school in that respect. So, yeah. And on that note, though, but you got like Rick and Morty writers on Marvel movies. I think that's another big red flag.
What the hell is Script? Answer me this. What the hell is Kevin Feige thinking bringing in Rick and Morty writers and only them? Because let's just establish
it's kind of akin to the Star Trek Discovery room being filled up with like people from like Gilmore Girls and shit.
Yeah, but this is almost worse.
They're inspired by Ronald D. Moore's Battlestar Galactica. Any show that uses the word frack that isn't BSG is probably going to be a terrible show because they're being inspired. The writers are inspired by Ronald D. Moore and nowhere near talented enough to replicate or even surpass what he did.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Whereas in the case of Rick and Morty, I mean, I haven't seen much Rick and Morty, but what I saw honestly did not either impress or engage me. It's to me, I put it like, yeah, fine, it's a step beyond Star Trek Lower Decks, but it's not much above that level.
Well, Rick and Morty plays on the edge of very dark humor, and a lot of the requirements for the writer's room is for them to have some pretty weird geek knowledge, because that they play around with a lot of geek knowledge and pop culture knowledge, and that seems to be something that Kevin Feige's really really responds to. And I can understand why, because Rick and Morty, the first season, did have quite an impact, but Hollywood takes a long time to see the effects of a hit show and how it plays out over the long term. So he's probably still thinking Rick and Morty is as good as it was in the first season or so, and he's just trying to pluck whoever is from that writer's room because he wants that type of energy, that type of fandom to. I think he suspects that if he can get that type of energy of that fandom into Marvel as well, it will increase its shelf life, because he knows he's kind of run a little bit past the expiration date on that with Phase 3. Like,
Well,
Phase 3 was
ironically,
a
all
little bit
he
on the
did was
decline.
rush it past the expiration date, because so far he's gotten 3 alum from Rick and Morty, and that's Jessica Gao, who did She-Hulk. So, yay, massive win on that one. It's Michael Waldron, who did season 1 of Loki and Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness.
Mhm.
Neither of which arguably were a hit, but I would submit they're the best so far. And then there was this first name I don't remember, but Loveness was his surname, who wrote Quantumania, and he will be writing the next Avengers movie, the Kang Dynasty, to be directed by the director of Shang-Chi. So, yay, really looking forward to that one.
Yes, and all of those writers are actually from latter writers' rooms at Rick and Morty, not anything that did the work to get it to the popularity that the show became.
So basically, these are the post-Jump the Shark writers.
Wow.
That was one way of looking at it, yeah.
That's the only way to look at it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's assuming that if Rick and Morty did actually jump the shark, it just kind of fizzled, really.
Wow, amazing stuff.
Yep. And then we've got a member chat from Magitech Mags, who I believe is supposed to be joining us tonight on Toxic Femininity.
Oh, awesome.
She gifted 5 Midnight's Edge memberships. Thank you so much. That is very generous of you. So thank you, Megs, for that. We got Pinochet's Helicopter Tours, who says, when taking revenge, you just don't go for the head and walk away. You bleed the enemy. You bleed the enemy slowly. I celebrate Disney's deserved death by 1,000 cuts. Well, they're not dead yet, but this is 2 major blows in one weekend, and or at least to wake up to on Monday morning for Bob Iger, let's say.
I would just like to give you this famous Norwegian/German expression translated back to English. There is no Freude like Schadenfreude.
This is true. And then we have Jake Benoist, who says, are you pumped for John Wick 4, or are you burned out? What are your thoughts on that new 65 movie coming out with Adam Driver? Stay cool, my dudes. Okay, well, one thing at a time here. John Wick 4. I'm looking forward to it. I'm curious why it should be so darn long. But some people were insinuating that this is because they went and took what was originally supposed to be 2 movies and put it into 1.
Wow.
I had heard. I don't know how accurate that is, though. Script, do you know anything about this?
Nope. Sorry, no. I mean, I don't
All
follow
right.
much of the John Wick. I've only seen the first one, which I enjoyed.
All right.
So,
Yeah, second and third one are pretty good, but that first one is on a like Die Hard level as far as greatest action films. The second and third one, I don't know if I could put on that level, but yeah, I'm looking forward to John Wick 4.
I thought the third one was good, and I'm looking forward to the 4th film. I'm actually very excited for it. I was really hoping it was going to be directly competing with Creed this weekend, but it's not. So I got to wait a couple more weeks. But I'm excited. I think it's going to do quite good. And at 3 hours, I think, is that where it's at, Tom? Is that where it just is?
Something like that. It's like 170 some minutes or something. I can't remember.
I think it's going to be. It might be long, but it may be really, really good. And yeah, I mean, and Keanu's in on this character for as long as he can continue to do it. And I haven't seen any signs of him slowing down. And I'm excited. Like I said, it's kind of our one of our last action films. I mean, that's why I think Mission Impossible Part 27 or whatever is going to be good. And even though they broke that up into 2 films. We'll see what happens, but I'm excited for it. Yeah, and then it's
65.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was
I
just
just
going
want
to
to
say.
say,
Yeah,
also unlike the John Wick and Keanu Reeves notes, bring on Constantine Part 2, still happening.
Yeah, there was a little movement on that, I guess. I had heard that Akiva Goldsman turned in his script and it sucked.
Maybe get a better writer than Akiva
And this
Goldsman.
is no, but the reason why, and this is what I had heard, and this is, I haven't even told you this, Andre. He turned in his script and it sucked, and this is where that news came from. What was it, 2 weeks ago, where the movie was dead?
No,
He was going into rewrites.
Yeah.
What movie was this? Sorry, I missed something.
Constantine 2 with
Constantine
Keanu
2,
Reeves.
right.
Yes,
But,
because Akiva was working on the script.
And
or whatever, I
Akiva is
guess.
botching it already.
Well, I mean, he has an in with DC. He has for a long time, since the mid-90s, and I don't know why Warner Brothers hasn't looked at his track record and says, "Get out of our offices."
Wow. Yeah.
Is he contractually obligated to be a part of this, or is that just
No, he's not. They just keep picking him up because there was a period where after Batman and Robin, he was commissioned to write the sequel to that, but the poor box office cut him off, and then he wasn't doing anything with it for a while. But once DC started doing their DC streaming service right before it went to HBO Max, they commissioned him to write Titans, and that show was terrible. And he's been associated with them for the entirety of that run. In addition to while he basically crossed the street and went over to Star Trek Discovery and then did Strange New Worlds. So he's been working for both of them at the exact same time, and both shows are terrible. So now he's weaseled his way into Constantine, and yeah,
he wrote the first one, didn't he?
That's why, because they're bringing.
Yeah, I was going to say that's why I was asked if it was contractual or not. But yeah, sorry,
nothing contractual. It's just that they wanted to try to bring the band back together.
Gotcha.
But one member of that band only lucked out the first time and really shouldn't be there.
Pretty much. I mean, he is what Robert Meyer Burnett has described as a fraudulent creator. Like, he got lucky with one adaptation, and he has been using that as a form of currency in the industry for 30 years. And the fact that people keep falling for it shows how ignorant and unqualified they are for the positions that they hold.
Yeah.
Well, and some of the things I've heard about him, I'm surprised he ain't been canceled yet. But on the note of 65, I'm kind of looking forward to it. It opens up against what movie is it that it opens up against now? I'm trying to remember. When does that come out?
My memory's failing at the moment, so
it's not a summer film, right? It's in April.
No, it comes out here in March. It's like in 2 weeks.
Oh, then it's going up against either Creed or John Wick 4.
I think it's in between the two.
Yeah,
I think it's in between the two.
Yeah.
So it opens on March 10th.
Oh, then that'd be Scream 6, isn't it?
Yes, that's it. Because I was like, wouldn't that be funny if this movie kicks Scream 6's ass?
I think
I hated the last one. And Paramount is spending so much money on promoting Scream 6. It's like, you know all this money you're spending on Scream 6? If you would have just spent $12 million of that on the supposed amount that Nev Campbell wanted, you would have gotten those asses in the seats. Because I'll tell you right now, half the people didn't like the last one, and another 25% or so are not going to show up because she's not in it.
Well, she is the franchise. Like, that's...
Yeah. It's too late now. You can't not have her be in it. Like,
yeah.
And they're spending a shit ton on advertising for this movie. Like, and they're also spending a bunch on, like, they got these, they're already got people poaching they've got popcorn buckets
and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So watch those be more valuable than the film ever will be, but we'll see.
Possible.
Yeah. So Scream 6, I hope 65 kicks its ass, actually.
Yeah.
But 65 looks fun. And this is a movie that Nate, Mr. H, has been talking about quite a bit. I don't know if you've been privy to any of those conversations on radio, but he talked about how he had seen some early footage for it and heard that it didn't test very well. So they went back and did some reshoots, and then the test went really well. And what they had done is, like, took it out, like they had like a comic relief sidekick that the kid saves, like a little dinosaur. and I guess that character's been completely removed. And they made it a bit more serious tone, so they took out anything that was more in the kind of, I guess, the Avengers kind of humor. I would imagine you could put it now. So I don't know if you've seen much about this movie 65, Andre, if you're interested in it or not, but it's got dinosaurs.
Yeah, I know. That looks cool. I look forward to it.
Didn't they do a Super Bowl ad?
Yeah, I didn't catch every single Super Bowl ad.
I can't remember now.
But I saw the first trailer, decided, you know what, I don't want to see anymore. I'm sold. I'm looking forward to checking this out on the exact same level as Cocaine Bear. Like silly fun. We need silly fun.
65 might get me out to the theater. The only thing that stopped me from going to see Cocaine Bear is we actually had an ice storm.
Oh, yeah. So
the night it came out, yeah.
It snowed on your snow.
Yeah, so we had ice and then it's snow, ice, then snow.
Right, but it snowed on your snow bear basically.
Yeah, well, that part, yes, but the script knows what I'm talking about. That's a hell of a combo. That's called the Big Mac.
Oh,
well, it's basically like a winter lasagna.
Yeah, that too. Yeah. Yes, and if you get several of those in a row, it's amazing. And the sarcasm in my voice there, I don't know if there was enough, but script, you haven't said much about 65. Are you looking forward to that at all, or is that something that's completely not your thing?
No, it looks interesting. I'm not a big Adam Driver fan, but the concept is curious. It piqued my curiosity. I mean, I know that they're on prehistoric Earth.
Yeah, I don't think they've hidden that.
There's nothing wrong with that. It's just how do they survive? That's the strange attractor. So I might go check it out. Maybe not its opening weekend, but maybe just after.
I think that was something else that Mr. H had said they had changed too. In the original story, it was kind of set up like Planet of the Apes. Like you're supposed to think it's some foreign planet, and then of course you realize it's Earth 65 million years ago. And I guess now they've just kind of taken that out of the equation. Like they're
basically good luck waiting till you come back to your own time.
Yeah, but I don't know anything else other than that. I've just seen the trailers and what Mr. H has said, and I may have even, he only said so much. I mean, Paulie can correct me if I'm misremembering what he said, so he'd been there. So, but yeah, it sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun, and hopefully it kicks the shit out of Scream 6. Mario Trillo says, my question is, what percentage of theater seats sold? But we never know because the movie industry is just legal money laundering scam. Well, that's a good question because they changed the prices of film tickets so much in the last,
4 years,
10 years. I was just saying, even in the media years has been bad, but I mean,
You've had 20% increases in 3 years, 30% over 4, over 5. It's even more than that. I mean, it's been really strange. And again, some of that is the addition of premium large format seats. So that'll explain some of that and why the average ticket price is going up. But at the same time, it's also driven by inflation and many other things. And unfortunately, Fithian was the one who suspended NATO's tracking of all of the data that would go along with average ticket prices, and but
it would be basically the seat filled formula, which is what we were told way back when. Which is we know that there's a standard amount of seating per theater, and then we tabulate that to see how many people actually are in the theater when the thing's being sold, because from region to region throughout North America, prices vary.
Yes.
And if they want to see exactly how many eyeballs are watching it and gauge what its interaction is,
just go by ticket sales. Then
you should go by ticket numbers as opposed to box office.
Yeah.
I used to.
Well, yeah. I mean, even if you go by that metric, we're still at a point where movies like Gone with the Wind, Star Wars, Superman the movie even perform better than most of these movies.
I will say it again. I said it in my video. I said it a little while ago. 146 million plus humans domestically saw Titanic in the United States in
you brought this up earlier.
1998?
Yeah, 1997, yeah. And it, as opposed to 64.4 million or so saw Top Gun Maverick. And it actually financially performed better, but that's less than half. So it's that's the conversation we need to be having. You've lost substantial giant portions of your audience, is specifically for blockbuster films, but even beyond that. So,
Well, there's a fatigue setting in. I think it's a blockbuster fatigue of sorts. I wouldn't call it necessarily a comic book movie fatigue, because if there's any comic fatigue, it's more so just Marvel itself, the crushing of the weight of having all this connected universe now after all this time. And I frankly think a lot of people are just checking out. I mean, yes, a big part of it is the woke shit.
Yeah.
The other half is I think a lot of people are just like, I'm not going to sit through 10 shows to be able to watch a movie.
I think that
Well,
was
the thing is, the 10 shows aren't worth being watched. That's
And
the
then
other
on
part,
top
too.
of that, then you have that
And
problem.
then the
added on
oversaturation too, right? Like they haven't figured out how to properly pepper this throughout each year to maximize its impact. It's like, oh, we're going to do a show back to back to back to back to back. It's like, it seems good in concept and on idea, but it really doesn't play out because the models that they're using and what they're putting behind it is just not resonating with fans. I mean, I remember at the turn of the century thinking it would be a fantastic idea if you could get a superhero show or a super set of superhero shows from one universe where for 3 months, one every quarter is one season of one character, and it's just back to back to back. And if those shows were good, it'd be a hit, and you'd have your annual cycle. But then when you start to actually learn more about the business and the turnaround time and the amount of effort that's required just to make those shows good and work, you can't have that many in production at the same time and maintain quality. You have to find a better balance to it.
Right.
And with Marvel trying to do the TV model on a film scale, it goes back to the old adage back in the early days of television where you had between 26 and 30 episodes a season. Most of those episodes, or a better percentage of those episodes, are most likely going to be duds or filler than really big hit, hard hitting episodes, because you are burning out your writers with that much content that frequently. And on the theatrical side of things, you have a bit more time between, but because of the way that the Marvel writers room is structured, you are burning them out on being able to exercise full creativity. And then on top of that, you're selecting such low tier, unvetted, untested writers to execute these things just so you can hit a release date, as opposed to taking the time to make sure that this is going to kill all competition when it releases. And that's where you run into these problems. It's not so much a fatigue, because when something is good and you've got a break between it, which these movies do give you a break of a few months, you should be able to, have your rest and come back in fully charged, ready for the next one.
You got a point,
the next one
because
doesn't have the energy, nobody's going to be receptive of that energy.
Because look at we just talked earlier about Taylor Sheridan's work, right?
Yeah.
And the beauty of it is it seems like there's a lot, but he doesn't. There's only 10 episodes per season of each of these shows, 8 in some cases. And it didn't take me long to binge through all of it.
Yeah, Tulsa King, Mayor of Kingstown, 1883, 1923.
And I'm just biting my nails right now, waiting for the rest of Yellowstone, I'm like, come on, so you're right. You're absolutely 100% right. I can take as much as I can as long as it's good. And I feel the same way about all this other stuff. And that's where I still believe that there's no such thing as like comic book movie fatigue as bad movie fatigue, or especially bad blockbuster movie fatigue. Where
bad
a lot of
Marvel movie fatigue,
and especially bad Marvel movie fatigue. And this is what I was trying to say earlier with Paul and Chris when they were here, was like, look at the movies we've had since Endgame.
Yeah.
They're garbage. They're fucking trash. None of them are worth a shit. The only top tier actual character they have right now is Spider-Man. You can't even really technically argue that Thor is one. Thor is basically one just because of Chris Hemsworth, and that didn't even fucking work in the last one. Because they demasculized him to the point now where he's a fucking joke, and they made him a babysitter, for fuck's sake, at the end of the movie.
I mean, the comic book movies of the early 2000s, the pre-MCU ones, the ones that hadn't quite figured it out, are better than the current phase of the MCU. I mean, hardly anything in the MCU right now can hold a candle to the first Venom, because Venom was ripped straight out of 2004. Most of the MCU right now can't hold the candle to Constantine from 2005.
You're right.
Yeah.
I used to love watching, because like when one of these movies would come out, it would be a big deal. And you're right, Andre. There's no anticipation buildup anymore like there used to be. Like you even mentioned Ang Lee's Hulk in that thing we dropped this morning. But you know what? Even though that movie had a huge drop off and it did leak online early, and I saw it early, I was still there opening day, right? And I still bought all the Hulk stuff that came out with it. It was still an event, right? Sure, it wasn't as big as, you know, Spider-Man was before
it. Should have been, but
and no, totally. I mean, the movie fucked it up, right? Let's be real. But even that film has some attributes to it compared to what some of this stuff is. At least Ang Lee tried some shit in that movie. I know you and I disagree on certain elements of it, but I'm like, look, you know, he tried this, he tried that. The part to me where it went completely off the rails was when he's fighting a fart cloud instead of an old man Hulk. Like, that was the dumb part.
I'll watch that movie 100 times.
Yeah.
Before
that's what I was getting
watch
to.
Black Panther Wakanda Forever one more time.
Exactly, because I was getting to that point. It's like, even though that the third act of that movie completely is unwatchable, I'll still watch that over any of this new shit we're getting. Is exactly what the point I was getting to. Even Spawn from 97 or whatever it is better than a lot of this shit. And that was just barely above Batman and Robin level. We've gotten to a point where I've gotten in arguments, and I'm serious when I say that Batman and Robin is no longer the worst Batman movie ever.
No, I agree.
It's true.
Very true.
The Batman is. And anybody who, I'm sorry if you like it, that's fine. But on a level of being an actual Batman story, The Batman is less of a Batman movie than Batman and Robin. At least Batman and Robin emulates the 50s comics of Batman
And
and the 60s
Howard
comics.
the Duck is no longer the worst.
Oh,
Marvel
fuck.
movie.
Howard the Duck never was. That was just the media. I've made that argument 12 times over now because the only thing Howard the Duck should have been was PG-13 or R. That is where they fucked up because George didn't allow them to commit to the character without it being PG. And it has that mixed tone like we were just talking about with Cocaine Bear. Because otherwise, if you look at that compared to the comics, almost everything that happens in that movie is something pulled from the comics. Right? Up until Ninja Turtles, that was and between that and Superman are probably the most comic accurate comic book films we got. You know, because even Batman in '89 was still, you know.
It was a ways out there, yeah.
As I say, Script could make a few arguments, I'm sure, as to why that's not quite Batman, but it's, you know, Tim Burton's Batman.
The most accurate depiction of Batman on film has been the Adam West Ward 66 movie.
I know you've made that, or probably Mask of Phantasm after that.
Mask of Phantasm would be the animated version, yeah. But live action wise, it's still back to that first one from CBS back in the 60s.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get what you're saying there. Because it's as far as comic book wise, yeah. But anyway, we need to move on here. As far as the laundering part, yeah, Hollywood, it always matters who's asking first and foremost. That's what I say the answer always is. And I suggest checking out Andre's excellent interview with Gary Tunnicliffe.
Oh, yeah.
Where he talks about The Exorcist 4 and the two different versions of that and how that panned out and how they talked about how much it actually cost compared to what it really did in the media. And it makes you wonder how many more films they lie about.
Should be quite a few. I've heard some other stories as well, not from Tunnicliffe, but from others regarding others that shall be nameless right now. But let's just say that blowing up production costs is a really, really good way of cutting tax.
Sure.
Yep. And then we've got Pilgrim Media, who says, who gives Elizabeth Banks any movies? Fail up? Well, sort of. She did have success with that second Pitch Perfect film.
Yep. And everything that she was directing post that was right in line with the current Hollywood mentality. So she didn't burn any bridges that way.
No,
Right.
on the contrary. She was handpicked by one of the heads of Universal, another wokier than woke woman, to do Cocaine Bear. So it wasn't like an audition process or anything like that, where they tried to find the perfect director for the material. No, it was basically her friend at the head of Universal who said, like, you know what? This is your movie. You deserve it. And that's how it happened.
No, because honestly, go ahead.
That's the official story from Variety. Of course, I'm retelling it in a way that they didn't write it, but that's basically what happened.
No,
there was no audition between. She had to deliver like a pitch, and that pitch was approved. But the job was basically hers without there being really anyone, certainly not anyone that we know of, were involved as other candidates, which tells me that it was basically just given straight to her as a reward for good service, I should imagine. Because exactly as Script pointed out, and as I pointed out in the video that we published here on Saturday, was it? On her allegedly being worried about Cocaine Bear. Her previous flops did nothing to hurt her in Hollywood, nothing at all.
Yeah.
Because they were good, on-message, virtuous movies that the pleb audience just weren't receptive to.
No, and the other part of this, and I noticed it was kind of funny, was like her being able to make more excuses for Charlie's Angels. And, you know, there was another rabbit hole we almost went down as I was editing. Well, there was another, I was just going to say, but we decided not to because it would make the video like another 5-10 minutes longer. And that was the fact that she's sitting here griping about like, oh, men get more chances than women do as directors. And that was kind of the whole basis for this whole argument. And I'm sitting here, wait a minute, time out. Actually, you are an exception to not just the director rule so far. You're an exception to the actor turned director rule so far, because 9 times out of 10, there's more scrutiny over an actor turned director than there ever is over a standard director, right? Like, you can only name a handful of really good actor turned directors in the past 10, 20 years, right? And she's one of the few has gotten more than her fair share of fucking chances. Let's be real. So she has no room to bitch, no room to gripe. The whole article to me was a puff piece to try and make her feel better, and her ego was shattered after fucking Charlie's Angels, and that's what it really had to boil down to. I don't know if you have anything more to say about that, Andre, but yeah, we started going down that wormhole, and it was like, yeah, we'll be here for another 5-10 minutes in this video if we do this, but yeah, for every, you know, Eastwood or, you know, even Dick Donner's was he a actor turned director?
He's an actor first. He and Steve McQueen got into a fist fight because when he became a director, Steve McQueen didn't believe he could do it.
Oh, I did not know that. That's something I learned today. But you know, just I mean, there's very few who managed to. You know, Mel Gibson, and but my point is, you know, even Penny Marshall, for instance, a woman, Bryce Dallas Howard, another one. You know, there's very few that managed to do that. And the fact that you can do that it says a lot in Hollywood, because that there's not even, we talk about Kevin Costner a lot lately because the Yellowstone thing. He had been pretty much persona non grata in Hollywood for almost 20 years, at least 15, close to it. When's the last time he directed a movie? That's what I'm trying to say. I think it was The Postman or whatever it was. One of those or a movie after that, maybe, but he hasn't done much since. And now he's finally directing again. So good for him. But
yeah, he was in movie jail for quite some time there.
Exactly my point. So she talks about movie jail. It's like, talk about Kevin Costner was arguably one of the biggest, not just actors, but directors on the fucking planet for a few years there. And after a couple movies, cut him off. You know, well, sorry, bud. You made a few stinkers. And everybody blames Waterworld, but it wasn't Waterworld. It was that fucking Wyatt Earp movie in The Postman that killed his career. People forget about that 3-hour Wyatt Earp movie. But Primark Vulcan then says, I was slightly disappointed in Cocaine Bear. I was expecting a gut-busting laughs based on the trailer, but got a movie that was funny, but could have been better. Yeah, unfortunately, it sounds like the movie that was made for a trailer. They didn't really worry about the movie at hand, according to script.
They treated it like a sketch and then didn't actually expand it to be a film.
Pretty much. Yep.
Yeah. Eight-Legged Freaks was better. Of course, that came out during a better time for filmmaking, but yeah.
And that's basically what this movie should have been, exactly. Yeah. Like, that's the tone Script and I are talking about. And that's where Tremors fits in that tone. It's that tongue-in-cheek, you know, almost Gremlins in a weird way kind of tone. You know what I mean? Like,
should have been on
the edge, but still has a really big sense of humor going on underneath the horror and other elements. So, yeah. But anyway, sad to hear that it's not as great of a movie as it could have been. Jake Benoist says Wirkola also directed The Renner and Hansel and Gretel. Is that who you brought up earlier?
True.
Okay.
This is Tommy Wirkola. He's the director of Violent Night, the one that I said he would have been a great director for Cocaine Bear. his first movie for Hollywood after he had made a few Norwegian movies. He actually started out with the Norwegian remake of Kill Bill. That's one you need to see, Tom.
Yeah, you sent it to me, but I never watched it yet.
That is such a thing. That's a Norwegian remake of Kill Bill. And then he did Dead Snow, which I'm sure some of you are familiar with in the comments. And then he was picked up by Hollywood. And the first movie that he did there was Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters with Jeremy Renner as Hansel.
I don't know if I've ever watched it. I think it's still in the plastic, actually. I think I only bought it because it was a 3D movie.
You watch it and you'll see, yeah, this is the guy that should have done Cocaine Bear.
But I think the reason I didn't watch it is because like that Snow White one also was like, eh. So I was like, what?
Oh, this one is R-rated with blood and gore. You like it.
I'm trying to think. Maybe I did watch this. I can't remember. I'll have to check my Blu-ray. If it's still closed, then that means I probably didn't. Speaking of Norwegians, Stian Monstad sends in 19 Norwegian krona and sends us a thumbs up. If you haven't hit that thumbs up yet, please do. There's over 1,000 of you watching, and I don't think we have 1,000 likes yet. So please hit that like button. We're still shy. Just a few. Let's get it over 1,000, kids. We'd appreciate that. Final Smash 1689 says, how embarrassed will Disney Marvel be when Super Mario Brothers hits big outside of the Guardians 3? I think Super Mario Brothers will make more than their other releases. Look, I've said this before. Mario Brothers is basically just going to be another stamp, like the final death nail at this point, because
one of them.
Disney has had their ass kicked by Illuminati in the last 3 years now. Culture Illumination. I mean, Jesus, I just said Illuminati. Oh my
God!
You did. I need to eat. That's half my problem.
They are the ones that made sure that Disney's ass got kicked in the first place. But
yes.
Neither here nor there.
Yeah, it's been four consecutive years of getting their huevos crushed underneath the boot heel of Universal. Universal's been killing Disney in animation, and they're about to do it again. The largest brand, or one of the largest brands recognizable around the globe, is Nintendo, specifically this particular character, Mario. And this film actually is doing something that hasn't been done in a while. It's opening first in China 2 days before its global release. So it opens April 5th, and the movie opens everywhere else on the 7th. So you watch this thing be a monster.
This is going to rock the box office, man.
It's going to be. This thing's going to hit the billion mark and keep going. I guess. Go ahead.
Sorry to carry on.
No, please.
I was just going to say it's going to be the biggest movie of the year.
Yeah,
you might be right, Andre, because we were going over that one night on, I think it was Mead. And at the end of the conversation, I'm like, you know what? Mario Brothers is the only movie that has any potential to be the biggest movie of this year.
Outside of the Mission Impossible thing.
Maybe. I mean, but you got to remember, Mission Impossible is also...
I don't know that there's any nostalgia for it the way that there was Top Gun, because Mission Impossible never went away, only for like a couple of years.
It does have the advantage that the last few Mission Impossible movies have been doing what the Marvel films have been failing to do, and that is go up and up and up with their box office.
Yeah,
because if I remember right, wasn't the last one finally hit over $1 billion, and then
and
an upward trajectory from there, basically.
Yeah, and then I mean, you look at what's happening with the Minions. Look at the recent example, right? The one that's still finishing out its run in theaters. You look at Puss in Boots. You're watching Illumination. Universal's just. Yep. I mean, Universal's doing well.
It's DreamWorks, but they're pretty much under the same company now.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm looking at it. I'm going, wow. They really did manage to take away all the creatives from Disney. And they've done it at every part of their business, not just in animation or their regular filmmaking. I mean, they're removing like talent for their theme parks and theme park development. Those units have grown exponentially. They've literally, Disney has just taken for granted a machine that they created, and now that machine is breaking down, they can't go and recapture all those people that they just lost. It's crazy.
Well, and there was another weird element that I didn't even think about with Mario. I mean, we've talked a little bit about things like this, but not exactly this. I was on a couple podcasts this weekend put on by the Legion of Memers, and one of the points brought up, because we were talking about the new Ninja Turtle designs coming for Seth Rogen's new Ninja Turtles movie, and to counterbalance what has been done to the Ninja Turtles over the years, because Christ, there's one franchise that has probably had their characters changed more times than others, has to be Ninja Turtles in the last 20-30 years, as far as like their design. And it's like, just find a design and stick with it already. The movie kind of got it perfect the first time. But anyhow, so to counter that, they brought up how Mario has not really changed much at all in 45 years. In fact, I watched a video about the design of Mario, and the only time it really had any major changes was between Donkey Kong and the first Mario Brothers game. Not Super Mario Brothers, the first Mario Brothers game. And the only reason Mario looked the way he did in the first place is because they were because originally it was supposed to be Popeye, but they found out they couldn't use Popeye as the character, so they made their own guy, and it was Jumpman, and then Jumpman just became Mario. And by the time you get to the Mario Brothers game, they pretty much have the design pretty close. It was the only redesign they had after that was when they basically rounded him off quite a bit more, and I believe it was the first time he was on. They had a slight change between Super Mario Brothers 2 and 3, and then he's been the same since Super Mario Brothers 3. So since 1990, they have not messed with his design at all. He's pretty much been the same. So right there, it tells you what you need to do. I just don't get this. Looney Tunes have stayed almost the same for years. As soon as they change them, that's when people gripe. Like, I don't understand why they don't get this. And I think that's another reason why Mario Brothers is going to manage to do what the others have. So, keep moving on though, because we got some super chats to get through here. Waltman says, might as well use Sweden's Carolinen's Bone Disney. What's that, Andre? Help me out here.
Sweden's Carolinen's Bone Disney. I honestly don't know. Sweden's Carolinen's Bön. That's like the prayer of the Caroline, but it's not like a name of a person. I don't know what that is. Sorry, maybe it's something in Liseberg or something, which is like a theme park. But
no idea.
It doesn't ring any bells, just from reading at it.
Sorry. Critique Corner says, between all the TV shows and movies watching Marvel isn't fun anymore. It feels like homework. Yes, this is kind of what I was getting to too. Yes, it would be one thing, like Script said, if they were good, then we probably wouldn't be complaining about it. But even so, when they're not good, it makes it even feel more like homework. It's the same thing with any kind of movie. Like, I hate when they go, well, you had to have read this comic book and this novel to understand what's going on. It's like, I shouldn't fucking have to. That should just be extra fun for fans. It shouldn't be required. Andre, you were about to say.
You are of course right that it does feel like homework. Like case in point, one more time. Case in point, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. It was useless if you hadn't done your homework and seen WandaVision first, and they didn't tell you that was required homework going in. Same thing with Quantumania. It wasn't a sequel to Antman and the Wasp, or Antman and the Wasp, the second movie. It was the sequel to Loki season 1.
Yeah, they didn't even bother to have like a last time on WandaVision shit in the beginning of the movie to help bring people up to speed either.
Yeah.
And they could have fit that in like 2.5 minutes.
Yeah, and since people are like going nuts in the chat here, the previous thing, the Swedish thing, the Karolinska Bön, is a song by Sabaton. But I evidently don't listen enough to Sabaton, so I didn't catch that. Yeah,
sorry about that.
Now, if you had put a Rammstein song title, I would have called that.
That's his church, man. It's like every time he says he's going to a concert, I just assume it's Rammstein. Because 9 times out of 10, I'd be right.
Well, tomorrow it's Weird Al Yankovic.
I know, yeah. The last time I actually said that, it turned out to be the one you just went to,
Henry Rollins.
Yeah.
But that was spoken word, not really a concert.
Yeah. But I'm envious that you get to go see Weird Al. Like, of all the ones you've gotten to go see lately, that's the one I'm like, Critique Corner, though, I agree with you here. This is a point that's really bothered me lately about a lot of things. Aaron Pipe says Marvel movies are doing bad because the movies suck. No other reason. If the movies were good, especially given how bad everything else is, then they would be breaking records still. This is what I was trying to say earlier, is it's not just the shows. The movies weren't helping their case either.
Well, and again, I mean, you can argue that the stories are bad, and that makes the movies bad. And those stories are bad because they're weighed down by a lot of unnecessary political garbage. If you remove the unnecessary political garbage and write a good story, you have a winning formula that you just are ignoring.
They forgot one of the golden rules or golden elements or whatever you want to call it. I know Scripted probably have a better take on it than I would on this, but basically the kind of the whole idea that Marvel was built on in the first place. Yes, these are all happening in the same world, but every comic is some kid's first comic, so you got to make it a standalone story of some type and give them all the info they need while also not stopping the story dead and boring the people that already know this shit. Like, there's a ways you can do these things and still make these movies stand alone, but still be a bigger part of these puzzles. There's ways of doing it and still making people to where people can enjoy them on their own too.
Well, that's the thing. That's the magic formula. That's the way you do these types of things. Iron Man 2, they're not dependent on each other. They really stand alone. Captain America and Winter Soldier.
Avenger. Yeah, first Avenger versus
the Captain America first two films are great examples. I'd say maybe even the Guardians films are good examples of it.
Yeah. Well, you don't
want to make one film dependent on another or a show dependent on a film. That's just begging for disaster.
Yep, that's what's got us here.
And that's part of it. But that's the other problem, right? You have a lot of needless exposition, which I would say that Ant-Man 3, Quantumania, whatever you want to call it, that had a ton of needless exposition that I was like, just show. There shouldn't be. We don't need to fill in the background if people miss the stupid TV show or any of the other stuff. Just show it and get that out of the way and stop talking about it. I'm tired of that. It was bad.
Yeah, but no, this is not the case anymore. Jesus Davila has been here for a year. Well, happy year anniversary. And he gifted a membership for that. Thank you so much, Jesus. And Dark King says, merch is the heart of an IP. How's MCU's market? Not good. Not good, Dark King. They are not doing very well in that respect. And you just got to go to the toy aisle to see that.
Yeah,
like Marvel doesn't have a very big section anymore. They used to have a large section. Now they don't. Same thing with Star Wars. As I said, you go to the toy aisle. Most ones I've seen, the two dominant toys right now are Jurassic Park or Jurassic World and Godzilla. Like, those are the two dominant toys.
What, like, Godzilla? Really?
Yeah. Well, like I told you, Andre. Then. It's a dinosaur and a monster. They got everything kids want in that shit. They love the Godzilla characters. They can't keep enough. They can't get enough of them, evidently. Every time I go into Walmart's, half their shelves on the one side is like half Jurassic World, half Godzilla and Kong. And then you look on the other side and it's a little section of Marvel, little section of Star Wars, little section of like wrestling, a little section, a very small section anymore of Masters of the Universe. Masters of the Universe has been pretty much almost phased out completely. If you're lucky, they might have some Ninja Turtles. Like, it's, and even the Ninja Turtle stuff, it's all classic Turtle stuff. Like, they've got the pizza slinging ones now, and the ones from the movie with the trench coat is the ones I've seen everywhere. And then, you know, you even go to your adult toy collector aisles, and hardly any of it's MCU stuff. The only MCU stuff I see anymore is the few rare Legends figures that come out that they actually have on the shelves that are worth a shit, and the Funko Pops. Like, they're Funko Pops out the ass. You want a Funko Pop of some Marvel thing? They've got it. Like, on some variation of. But anyway. Yeah. No, their merchandising has not been doing well. Jeff Robinson says, inflation undercounted for decades. See Shadow stats. Is this something you know about, Culture?
Yeah, I would love to get into this, but it's going to take us well beyond the conversation here. But that's an accurate statement. So yes,
that sounds.
I think Sander figured out the formula. We need Cocaine Godzilla.
Oh,
well, that'll work too.
Oh no, they say he's got to go.
Yeah, that's the
world's if Godzilla had cocaine, there'd be no cocaine on the planet left for anyone else because of how big Godzilla is.
Exactly, that's like what I meant. Like, that's the world.
He'd be raging.
Right, and then he'll be angry.
He'd be raging, but like every cartel would be after Godzilla, so that would be something. Like, we have no cocaine. We have to kill Godzilla and grind him up and snort him instead.
What's this? Colombia just has been eviscerated by Godzilla. He did all the cocaine in Colombia. Oh shit!
You know what? That is a sequel to Shin Godzilla I'd watch the hell out of.
Get Kong some mushrooms to battle. You know, he's got that hippie thing going on. Scott Hughes says best thing since Endgame was Werewolf by Night. I have to watch this. I haven't seen it. I actually enjoyed the Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas special quite a bit.
Yeah, me too.
I thought
that was
hilarious.
the highlight of all of Phase 4.
Maybe even more than Spider-Man No Way Home. I probably like that more.
Probably yeah.
Even just for that song alone in the beginning was hilarious. The Santa song. About him killing you with missiles from his toes and shit. Anyway, Dash Attack says Mando's ended in season 2. We love Gina Carano. Yeah, I don't know how much of an effect this is going to have on the overall proceedings, but like I was saying earlier, a lot of interest has fell off just because it's been how long since they've had the show? It's been a hiatus for what, almost 2 years now?
Well, you have to include Boba Fett in it because there was like a season 2.
Nobody watched Boba Fett. I know. But nobody watched that. That's the problem.
Well, that's a challenge. Then they're going to be a little bit confused with why Baby Yoda is back with Luke again, or is back with Mando again.
Yeah, I think this on top of everything else, I can't even believe that I just realized that it's, you know, it was brought up earlier and that it's coming out in 2 days. We ain't heard shit about it. You're right. That Chris was astute with that observation because it's pretty damning.
It's gonna tank. I mean, and without if they no longer have Mandalorian, what the hell does Star Wars have?
Not a lot. I mean, the Acolyte.
Ray.
Maybe this is going to be the last season because didn't Pedro also say something about leaving?
Good. Good.
So I wonder. We got Satan's Testicle, the incompetent Alex Kurtzman. How concerned should we be for X-Men 97? Well, I was concerned until isn't it the showrunner who was the former writer at
The Witcher? That's exactly
Witcher, yeah.
right. Keep this in mind. We know that the people at The Witcher hate The Witcher, the source material, and laughed at it because the showrunner of X-Men 97 is the one who told us. Now, does that mean that X-Men 97 is going to be amazing? No, it doesn't. Maybe the guy was just being an opportunist, trying to see, hey, I can slag these people that the fans have issues with, and that way look like a savior in the process. Or maybe he genuinely is a fan of what came before and he's intent on honoring it. Maybe, for all we know, Marvel did an accident and or screwed up and hired like the one good man for this. But just based on that, I would not write off X-Men 97 just yet. I think that actually has the chance to be pretty decent. Time will tell, of course, but I'm telling you, there's a chance.
Yeah.
Oh boy, the story that Six sent me in here in the background about Jon Favreau not having a plan for Mandalorian really gives me some pause.
Yeah, a story like that, I don't believe. That thing was set up with a plan in mind.
I think that plan got derailed.
The plan got derailed by the firing of Gina Carano, which is, I think, is the real reason why Carano was fired, because she was recognized as a load-bearing killer. Get rid of her, and you fuck up everything that that Favreau is trying to do.
Yeah,
he goes. It has no planned ending. It's not like there's a finale to what that we're building to. And of course, the context of that, he goes, I think the beauty of this is that it's in the middle chapter of a larger story. But then he says, and though we'll have resolution over time with these characters, it's not like there's a finale that we're building to that I have in mind. Quite the contrary. I love for these stories to go on, and so these characters potentially could be with us for a while. I really love telling stories in their voice, and I love the way the adventures unfold. I'm looking forward to doing much more. and he's written season 4 already. So there you go.
Fair enough. As an aside, real quick, because somebody asked the question, toy sales across the board were down in 2022, and they had a 6% decline year over year in the fourth quarter, which is when Christmas is. So the toy industry across the board was down. Marvel toys going into August were down 50% in sales in total units. But the problem is, because of inflation, the numbers financially didn't look as bad as they actually were or should have reflected. Same thing going into how they ended the year on a $49 million decline for 2022 overall. And I'm talking about toys as across the board. That $49 million is it should have been a lot worse. But again, because of inflation, they were able to artificially maintain the perception that the toys didn't decline dramatically, but they absolutely did.
Well, and I'm kind of going back to the whole thing that we just talked about with Jon Favreau off the Toy Sorry Culture. But like, I think Andre's kind of right. I think he initially had a plan and it got derailed, because at this point, how do you not plan this shit? And you know there's a beginning and ending to this, because you know that leads to a sequel, right? The sequel trilogy. So it's not like you don't know. You have to have some kind of end game involvement here. And it goes absolutely against everything that they were saying before, especially Kathleen Kennedy, about this whole building up the Star Wars universe like the Marvel universe. Because in that case, you definitely got to do some planning. So I think Andre's right about that. But moving on here, Dash Attack says, with The Last of Us success, Pedro doesn't need Mando anymore. The show has no direction since the rewrites, hence the time skip. Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to remember. I think it was in an interview. I could be wrong, but I thought I read that he said something like this is going to be his last season, but which means they'll probably just recast him anyway. It's not like they need him.
Yeah, no, not really. Or have someone else behind the costume while he just does the voice work and makes like...
That's what he's doing already.
Cameo. Yeah.
That's my point, is like, I think they're just going to replace him altogether. Like, what do you even need him to do the voice for? Just about anybody can talk like that. You know, it's like, so what are you adding to this performance? Nothing. When everybody else is doing all the footwork for you. Horseradish Power. You know what it reminds me of? Remember the sequel to Hellboy?
The Golden Army?
Yeah, when they just finally said, you know what, fuck it, because what's his face, who was playing the fish guy, Doug Jones? They're like, he sounds just like what's his face anyway, who played his voice. David Hyde Pierce. Like, just let him do it. Fuck it. Why pay the extra money? Nobody'll notice. Like, nobody noticed.
Yeah, because basically, because what happened is that the person behind the mask of the fish guy in both the first and the original second Hellboy with Ron Perlman was David Hyde Pierce. And the studio felt that no, we need a more named actor for the big screen version here. So they hired Doug Jones to just do the voice.
Nope, David Hyde Pierce to do the voice. Doug Jones was in the makeup.
What you just said,
sorry, it was the other way around. I got confused there. Yeah, no. So basically, they hired David Hyde Pierce to do the voice. The irony is that he just sounded just like Doug Jones anyway. So for the sequel, they just had Doug Jones do it. That's how it was, wasn't it?
Yes, because it was like, why the fuck pay David Hyde Pierce when he sounds just like him?
Yeah. And I believe that David Hyde Pierce, he kind of agreed with the decision, and he even said that, I just mimicked the voice of Doug Jones anyway.
Like, I mean, seriously, in the ADR sessions, because the way they probably did it, they had one thing play where it had Doug Jones's track, and then it would go click, boop, 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 and then they play it over where David was supposed to put in his spot. I got to imagine after 3 or 4 of them, he's like, why the fuck am I doing this? This guy sounds just like me. Like, I got to imagine it had to hit him at some point, you know? This is kind of dumb. But unless they didn't play any of the original track for him. But usually, my understanding of how they loop that stuff, that's usually how they do it. So you can kind of get an idea of what you're supposed to do. But that's if they have any workable audio. But I don't know.
With a voiceover dub like that, they usually hear the original so they can time the lip movement.
That's my point. Yeah, exactly, Script. That's what I was getting at. Because I've seen it done tons and tons of times. Like I say, they show the original clip, then it goes click, boop, 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 to let them know when they're supposed to start, and then it'll start, and then they do their thing, and then if they like it, they say, good, next one. You know,
Yeah.
I've seen it done, so it's not like, yeah. Horseradish Powers has been a member for 4 months and says, out in June, The Flash and Heroes with Who Fixed his mess, and maybe Cocaine Bear 2 blow this. I cannot wait to see Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. That's another one that's been doing fairly well, considering they should have released that in theaters, like in a wider release, because it was doing really well, and it's a very, very limited release. It had like a Fandango exclusive thing, but it's coming out on video already, so yeah. So with that, let's move on here. We've got some more super chats to get through. We've got Horseradish Power, who says, how to fix the MCU? Have the Avengers fight not Kang, but Velma. Everyone who's endured that series would have loved it to happen. Or Iger for a villain? Yeah. Or at least a villain that everybody's rooting to go down. Like, that's the thing, is why bring in another sympathetic villain? That's all we've had in the Marvel Universe.
And just bring in Nancy Pelosi.
Oh, Lord. Jericho Leon says, Loveness wrote only 6 episodes of Rick and Morty. Well, that's enough.
That was too many. I'm sure those were like
That's
not
what he's
the best
credited
6
with.
episodes.
Yeah.
He's a staff writer. He contributed to probably a lot
That's
of the
good.
breaking down of the season, and then got assigned his episodes and turned them in, and showrunner rewrote them.
Yeah. Nightwish fan 1991 says, don't worry, Antman only fell 69.7475833%. It's not 70%, guys.
That's all the
Entertainment
difference
press.
right there.
Actually,
Yeah.
technically it is. But yes, I know what you're saying.
They've
Yeah.
done everything they can to like.
I've been to public school, but even I know that once you get over 0.5%, you can round it up.
Exactly.
Yeah. Mike is in the chat. How you doing, Mike? He joins us sometimes on 4K for you. Says, I talked to Doug Jones about the first Hellboy and the voice situation a few years ago. I have to tell you the story behind it sometime. I can't wait.
Oh yeah, that'd be
Maybe
awesome.
we have a
yeah.
video if it's
Ooh.
interesting enough. Then we've got we got this one and we got this one. Okay, this is when I know 6 had to leave because none of the chats have been taken away. Mecha J says Rick and Morty have taken shots at superhero movies, so it doesn't make any sense why Feige would hire these writers to work on the MCU. To
On
the contrary,
it makes perfect sense.
exactly. Go ahead, script.
If
You
you
know
know
exactly
enough
where.
about the subject to mock it, then you know enough about the subject to write it.
Yeah.
and
That's
that-
exactly
just
what I was going to
basi-
say. Yep.
That's basically it. It's like you have to understand, and unless you're telling a very egregious, hurtful thing, mocking something else, you're most likely going to be revered for being able to do it.
Oh, you mean She-Hulk?
I know. I
Yeah,
mean, like what,
oh.
like in one of the recent South Park episodes where Randy's complaining to Stan's dad about the wokeness. Because of that and how they approached it, there's no way Matt and Trey would ever be able to write for a Marvel thing, even though they wouldn't anyways. But that methodology, that is mocking failure, where Rick and Morty is just mocking the story.
Yeah.
And those are very two different types of approach. You can have fun mocking the story because, everybody in Hollywood knows they're comic book movies. They're supposed to be a little silly, grandiose, extravagant, whatever, but entertaining. And when you point out that they're not entertaining and that they're not grandiose and they're not fun, that's when Hollywood would get upset.
Yeah. And I'll give you another example. Look at movies like Spaceballs, right? The reason that movie works is because Mel Brooks and the writers were actually fans of Star Trek and Star Wars and sci-fi stuff. And they liked it and they got it and they got what worked about it. And then you jump to movies like Not Another, whatever, insert your fucking thing here. Those didn't work because they were just making fun of the memes. They didn't actually really pay attention to what made these movies work that they were making fun of. That's the difference there. Like, you get somebody who actually gets the stuff. Blazing Saddles is even better because of that. Because clearly those guys were fans of Westerns. And they're like, well, what if we did this, injected this kind of an idea into a Western? There you go. Boom.
How is it you see a whole bunch of cowboys eating beans around a fire, but none of them are tooting?
Or Young Frankenstein's an even better example, right?
Yeah.
That pays loving homage to the original Frankenstein films. But yet it's mocking the humorous elements of them. Like it gets it. But anyway, yeah, that's part of the problem, I think. But no, I was gonna say I agree totally with that assessment, and Yeah, it normally would make sense to hire those guys, but in this case, it's not working out. HyperGuyver2 says, first Roald Dahl gets censored, and now Ian Fleming's 007 novels are getting vandalized by professional victims. I mean, sensitivity readers. Yes, I brought this to Andre's attention, and I think you're working on something with this, aren't you?
Yeah, video on that is coming. I was just busy on the Quantumania post-mortem, which we published earlier today, also working on Embracer and Lord of the Rings, and obviously the sensitivity readers or cultural revolutionists, or what you want to call them, and what else they're also attacking next. So yeah, that is coming.
Well, with Roald Dahl stuff, the original publications are remaining in print, and they're just now having an ancillary version as well, which it will not sell.
No, why would it?
Yeah.
Who would buy
It's
that?
going to be hilarious.
And eventually, that might be, if enough people speak out with regards to the original 15 Ian Fleming novels, they might do the exact same thing. In which case, we're then going to have very strong data points about rewriting books not selling and not even being worth the effort. And then those jobs of the sensitivity readers will vanish.
If there is someone that deserves to lose their jobs, like I don't want to see anyone lose their jobs, but if there are someone that really if someone has to lose their jobs, it might as well be the sensitivity trainers or censors or what have you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a pretty useful
Look, I'm
thing.
sorry, if your job is making other people's lives worse, especially under the guise of supposedly making them better, then you do deserve to be fired. that is a horrible job, and it shouldn't even exist. Like, that's where I'm getting with some of this shit. They can find.
I want to be
elsewhere.
a sensitivity reader just so I can read it and be like, nope, this passes, we're good. Moving on.
No shit. That's where I'm at. Like with this business, get some people in there who actually know the difference. Like, anyway, Nightwish fan, look forward to that video, HyperGuyver. It should be forthcoming eventually here. Nightwish fan 1991 says, after Rick season 2, there was an article about Adult Swim lacking female writers. That seems to be when the rot set in and the show got flooded with new writers. They moved to other properties. This is not, I was gonna say, this is not untrue from what I'd heard. This is actually accurate from what I was reading, and the complaints and other bullshit started as soon as this happened. Now, again, I'm not saying that they shouldn't have had female writers involved, but
they should have vetted better.
Yeah, like this makes sense to me as to why the problem started, when, especially the types of people they brought in. That was the other problem. You get my drift?
Yeah, that was the big problem, I would say.
Yeah. And that's when the complaints started to happen. That's when the Me Too stuff started to happen and everything else. So, yeah. And I'm not saying that any of the stuff that did happen that was supposedly okay, but a lot of it was stuff that I'd be like, yeah, I can see why this happened, because basically this was a fraternity before these people showed up. That's why. But that's also what they needed to get their creative juices flowing. It worked for them. But it didn't jive with the new crowd that was coming in the door. John Thomas says, I came in late. Did you talk about Cocaine Bear box office? I will not apologize for enjoying it and laughing. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Most of the panel didn't seem to enjoy it. But they did like the schadenfreude of how it's taken a bite out of Antman's box office.
If you enjoyed it, that's the only thing that should matter.
Culture liked it, though.
I liked it. So you're in good company, John Thomas. I'm just saying.
There you go.
I have yet to see it, but I think I'm going to wait for streaming now. So, Jack White says, Tom, I just sent you an email with a link to an interesting article about AI art. Check it out. It's only an article, so no video, and share it with the panel. Well, I'll try to share it real quick here. We're running a little overtime here, Jack. Just give me a second here. If you want to go to the next super chat while I'm getting this, Andre, you can do that. If not,
you mean to go to the next super chat in the meantime?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Perilous Plane says, for 100 Norwegian krona, multiple part series here. Part 1, Americans of privilege with Ivy League educations, and they are not normal average Americans. Yeah, no, this is true. Looking for part 2 here. Part 2, Obama, the 44th president of the United States Education, Occidental College, Columbia University, BA, Harvard University, JD, DeSantis for the 6th governor of Florida Education, Yale University, Harvard University, JD, lawyers. Part 2, Part 3. Both lawyers and political slime. Midnight's Edge with love, Norway. Okay, yeah. Well, thanks for sharing their resume with us. I also have to say that in my capacity working in finance, lawyers is a breed I have learned to be careful around. So yeah.
And thank you for your support, Paulus.
Thanks for the history. Thanks for the history lesson.
And your support, of course.
Yes.
And with that, I got this article now. I'll go through it real quick, and then we'll get your guys' response to it. Ichiro Oda asks GPT to write the next One Piece chapter. One Piece manga creator Ichiro Oda has been playing around with AI in the last few months. Last December, he made AI draw Lucci and thought it was hilarious, and then the process changed the intimidating man into a small girl. He drew a picture of Luffy's incredulous reaction and posted it as a video on the One Piece official YouTube channel. I'm not going to show that because they'll probably nail us. Oda's newest AI adventure goes a step further. He asked ChatGPT to write the next One Piece chapter. The One Piece Twitter account posted the entire exchange, prefacing it with, Oda asked the taboo question in Oda's first message to ChatGPT. He says he can't think of the next One Piece story, so he asked ChatGPT to write an especially entertaining one. The AI obliged by retelling a story about the King of Shadows, who kidnaps Chopper in order to defeat him. Robin connects with the Shadow tribe from her past. With the help of newfound allies, the Straw Hat crew defeats the King of Shadows. What do you think of this story? AI asked Oda. It has Shadow controlling villain, a mysterious race of shadow people, and new friends. Robin's role also be important. Readers will want to pay attention to her knowledge and actions. Oda replied, sorry, this is boring. Could you please present a more interesting idea? ChatGPT then launched into a story where an alien secretly lives among the captain and crew. The alien's home planet was destroyed by an evil spaceship, and on board the One Piece ship to pursue the enemy, the captain and crew help the alien in their pursuit. In their journey, they stop at an island where an evil witch lives. The witch plans to steal the alien star fragment, which is necessary to restore the alien's home planet. The captain and crew team up with the alien, defeat the witch, and then restore the alien's planet. This time, Oda seemed to like the story. Thank you, he replied. I'll write it exactly like that. Tune in manga next week to see if Oda follows through. There you go. So what's your guys' reaction to that? Using AI to write a script.
Don't.
Yes, go ahead.
Don't use AI. That's it. You're not writing if you're using AI.
Well, and again, I mean, it already indicated its bias in the first story that it wrote, which I understand why he rejected it right away. I'm not sure that that's a decent story to begin with, but again, it shows you that we're going to be subjected to a lot of like meaningless garbage crap stories from AI, and we'll be able to spot them a mile away.
Yeah. Well, the other part too is the only advantage we have seen, at least on the industry side of things for AI, is early concept art that we then take to an artist and be like, this is the idea we're going for. Can you make this way better and cooler? And then, we discard the AI stuff and the concept artist comes back and it's something that's way better than what the AI generated anyways. But the artist has at least a better idea of what was the initial concept to begin with, and they expand and develop that more organically. And that's really the only aspect of it is it's just that where a person who can't draw can communicate and use the AI to get some basic images. And then from that and a good conversation with the artist, create something way better and far more valuable, and then just toss the AI part aside because it's basically just like a translator at best.
Yeah, I played with one of these AI once just to have fun, and I think you were privy to some of the script. It was kind of funny. I would feed it like the beginning of a plot of a film and see where it would take it. And 9 times out of 10, it would either take it where it logically should go or it would go completely off the fucking rails.
Oh, yeah, like the Nightmare on Elm Street one.
Yeah, that was the only one that came up with this any good. Because like Gremlins, it kept going in the same place where the movie ended up going and stuff like that. And a few of the other ones I think I tried did the same thing. Nightmare on Elm Street was the one where it finally came up with something unique. And I'm like, but the funny thing about that script is that's an idea I can actually plug into a completely different story that was kind of inspired by a true story, or not true story, but like a real urban legend. And I'm like, oh, I can use that. Because the idea it came up with is the only difference that the AI came up with between the original Nightmare on Elm Street and their version was, instead of the parents ganging up and killing Freddy and him getting his revenge that way through dreams, they made a pact with Freddy that they wouldn't get killed, but Freddy could kill their kids. So there's something to that. I'm like, oh, you could use that. Like, you know, there's something to that. But yeah, that was the only element it came up with that was even remotely unique. Otherwise, everything else it came up with was completely fucking stupid, or just what we already got out of the movie anyway, because it logically just went to the same fucking place. So yeah, I don't think it's a very good concept to be using AI in that respect. Ashram K says, darn shame, Seabear could have been the new Tucker and Dale. Could have been. It could have been like the new Snakes, better than Snakes on a Plane, because at least some people have been saying it delivers a little bit more on the concept than Snakes on the Plane did, but just doesn't sound like they executed it very well from what.
And for those that have not seen Tucker and Dale versus Evil, do yourself a favor and check it out.
Yeah, I thought the assembly cut was a little better than the final product, but it's still a good movie.
Assembly cut? You have to hook me up with this.
Yeah. Oh, I don't have it anymore. But it was, some things were slightly out of order in the beginning, but it worked better because it created a lot more comedy later on. But for Snakes on a Plane, Cocaine Bear didn't even scrape. It was pretty much on par with addressing the concept of what Snakes on a Plane had.
Gotcha. That's sad to hear.
Which is unfortunate because
yeah, it is. Accident Seller, you got to do this one, Andre.
Yeah. Let's see here. Accident Seller says for 25 Norwegian kroner. Einar, kan du si at Antman ble bamsemums? Yeah, I can say that. I think he means Einar. Can you say that Antman was turned into? Oh, it's hilarious actually. Bamsemums. Basically, it's like saying Antman was turned into a Norwegian candy, but it's shaped like a bear.
Like a gummy bear.
A gummy bear in chocolate.
Oh.
Gotcha.
Chucky, I'll send you some. I think you'll like them.
Please. You hear that, Paulie? He's sending me candy. No, I'm just kidding. Marksman 117B says, script, who won the fist fight, McQueen?
Oh, no. The fist fight was broken up, but McQueen ended up apologizing to Donner because Donner gave him some great direction.
Yeah. STR Redwell says, Mission Impossible doesn't have generations of people behind it. Super Mario Brothers dates back to 1985. That's almost 40 years. Actually,
Mission
technically
Impossible
a little
from
longer.
66.
Yeah, I was going to say it actually does, but there is a gap. I mean, I'm not going to, because script is right. There is a gap, but yes.
Gap of almost 20 years.
Yeah.
Since the end of Mission Impossible and the movie, the first one.
Didn't they also have a revival series for a while too, I thought?
Well, I think that's what I was talking about. Like, because in the 70s, they had the revival one.
Okay, that's the one I was thinking of then.
Because I think they had 5 seasons of the original. Dan Briggs was in the first season, and Mr. Phelps was carried on from season 2 to season 6, I think. And there was a break, and then they had the revival, which it was either in the late 70s or the early 80s. And then there's the Brian De Palma movie in the mid 90s that started this whole franchise.
Yeah.
But Mario has been consistent since like 1980.
Yes. Actually, I was going to say earlier than 85 because, like I said, he originally originated with Donkey Kong, even though he wasn't called Mario yet. But yeah. And then yes, Polly to Candy. And moving on, we've got John Thomas who says, I saw Puss in Boots this weekend too. I liked it, but the animation for the action scenes seemed different from the regular scenes. Almost anime in appearance to me. I haven't seen it yet, so I can't comment on that. I normally would notice something like that too, so sorry I haven't. But didn't they spend a lot less on this one too, Culture, than they did the originals? Because wasn't this one a bit shaved back budget?
Yeah, the budget wasn't exorbitant. I don't know if it was a diminished budget, but it was surprisingly low in comparison to a lot of animation projects that we've seen recently. I'd have to look it up exactly, but
it's got a $90 million budget.
Yeah, but again, compared to what we've been seeing coming out of, Disney and others, that's really a low number. 180, $200 million we've been seeing.
It is less than the original, though. That's what I was saying, because the original had $130 million budget.
Yeah, and that doesn't surprise me. Again, I mean, you've already got the characters, framed out and everything else. A lot of it, I mean, if not all of it, was done, in three-dimensional art programs and all that. Just go from there.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking maybe they use some shortcuts and stuff like that. I don't know. I'm not sure if that would have anything to do with it, John, but I'll have to check it out. If I get a chance, I'll try to address this again. Mecha J says Last of Us actress Storm Reed had apparently responded to homophobic backlash of the show, saying, "If you don't like it, don't watch it," getting reminders of Frost G4 mess. Yeah. There's
Yeah,
that.
he did say that. So we'll see how that turns out.
STR Redwolf says follow-up, Mission Impossible is focused more on adults and is limited. Super Mario Brothers as a franchise still has adults playing with their kids, even grandkids. This is true. It is a very multi-general, still very huge franchise. It is hard to argue that outside of Tom Cruise, what appeal Mission Impossible has to the current day compared to what it used to, but no, I mean, I do have to concede with Scripps' argument that it was a franchise that's been around for a while, though. But no, in comparison to Mario Brothers, not even on the same level. So, Stian Mondstadt has been a member for 7 months. Thank you so much. Then Tendu Kiru says, casual fans and even trades are waking up to the MCU is failing. We know why they refuse to admit it. Will rebooting save the MCU or changing the Disney Marvel executive staff? Yes. To both of those. No, the rebooting would only work if you change the staff too. That's the basic answer. You got to start from the ground up again at this point. I mean, you could revive what you have if you get the right people in there, but I think they're too far gone now. What do you think, Script? I know you think that nothing is beyond fixing usually. So
yeah, I mean, you get the right people involved, you can do something quite spectacular to give it a second life or second wind. Yeah, if they do something with like the Kang Dynasty or something with the multiverse where they either recollapse it into a singular timeline and bring back the characters everyone loves, or introduce variations of other characters that didn't work well on their own debut that work well now, you can then, theoretically write off the failures and just proceed from that new point on, so long as you're maintaining, proper writing, good plots, very strong, likable characters, and fun adventures for them.
I'm not against a soft reboot or kind of thing like with H2O or anything like that either. But then again, you can come back around to it and do it again like they did with the new Halloween films, and look what that happened there. So, I mean, you have both fields of it, but like Script says, like it's all about the people behind it executing it. Without the proper people, it's still going to suck either way, no matter what you do.
Exactly, and I'm of the opinion that you definitely have to change the people behind, but you keep working from what you have at screen. I don't think there's any point in rebooting and discarding everything, because then you're just going to have to start over and retread a lot of ground. So yeah, just build on from where you are right now, but do it better.
Yes and no, Andre. The beauty of the comic book stuff, at least anyway, is it's so vast, is that you could reboot completely and start again, but not have to retread the same ground all over again. There is that. But I agree with you. It's kind of a James Bond thing at this point. I think a lot of these franchises would have been better off had they just, like, look, I know Superman Returns didn't work, but I think they had the right idea. Like, it was the execution of the film, the story, that was the problem. But I think they had the right idea and just kind of like James Bonding Superman. Like, just, look, we're just going to kind of go with the same vibe that Donner did. Similarities, but it's still its own thing, but we're going to reuse the theme and stuff like that. In fact, I think they should have just went even more out, because some of the problems that people have with it are when it deviates, like, aside from the story, like the costume and whatnot, but, and how differently Kevin Spacey acts than the other Lex Luthor. But those things aside and all the other arguments aside, I don't see why you can't just keep doing that. And at this point, we could have done that with Spider-Man and a few others too, for that matter. No, I'm kind of burnt out on the whole built universe, shared universe stuff anyway. It's kind of where I'm at.
I think a lot of people are. The multiverse garbage.
Which is sad because I used to be really into that shit too. So.
Well, they ruined it by making, again, so many of the movies interdependent on each other. Had they just stuck with a basic thing of, oh, we're going to tell a standalone story, and maybe we'll end it with an act tease that leads to another story, but not necessarily is prevalent to this one here. That's what people really like the mid-credit scenes for, is that, oh, this is kind of setting up there's something bigger here. But Iron Man 1 ended with Iron Man 1. Iron Man 2 ended with Iron Man 2. Captain America ended with Captain America. Winter Soldier, for all intents and purposes, pretty much ended at the end of that film. It wasn't so predicated on, okay, now we got to see the next one, which would be, Multiverse of Madness to Ant-Man Quantumania. Heck, even Ant-Man 2 to Endgame and Captain Marvel.
I know where it starts.
Endgame. Yeah,
I know where it starts, script, to be honest with you, because this is because I walked in on my mom watching Iron Man 3 one day, and I know she hadn't seen the Avengers.
Yeah.
And I said, how the fuck do you know what's going on? Well, I didn't say it like that to my mom. I said, how do you know what's going on? She's like, what? I'm like, you're watching this, you ain't seen the Avengers. She's like, I don't know. I don't care. I'm like, she's like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, because all this stuff that he's going through is because of the crap that he went through in the Avengers. She's like, I kind of figured that.
And here's the thing. The Avengers was the last Paramount distributed Marvel film, but it was still under Disney's control at that point, and that's when you started seeing the dependencies start.
Yep, that's the point, and that's the. And again, we got some great movies after that, but the ones that are better are the ones that are more standalone, like Guardians, for instance, and ones that don't depend, or Ant-Man, that don't depend so much on other films to lead into them.
Yeah.
So that's a point there, and then Robert says. With $5. Thank you so much. Mando season 4 is written. Timothy Oliphant rumored to lead Rangers show on. John had 2 years to make season 3. I'd be surprised if it sucks rating wise. Who knows? Yeah, I mean the show might be all right, but I think now that it's lost its focus, and I'm not saying it's all Gina, but I think that set in motion like a tumbling effect of dominoes inside. And then having Kathleen Kennedy re-injected into it, that was one of Chapek's biggest follies, if you ask me. Because I don't think he realized what Iger was doing there. It's like, no, Iger gave her this other project so she'd stay the fuck out of Star Wars. And now you just put her back in there. So, yeah, I don't know. We'll see. But we got, 48 hours less then to find out?
Yep.
So, there we go. The Last Millennial says, opinion, if Lucasfilm doesn't make a Star Wars that isn't connected to Vader, also with a team of characters on par with Luke, Leia, and Han, Star Wars will always be a failure. These people are pros at making bad decisions.
Yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
It's hard to disagree with that. Mecha J says, with Gina's firing, Boba and Obi-Wan being messes, and Andor not getting decent ratings, Mando season 3 might not be a big hit Disney Lucasfilm expect. I think that's kind of the case, and that's probably why they're not spending the money on advertising and shit. It kind of goes along with the whole Netflix thing, not to go too deep into that, and I'll keep it quick. But like we said, why it took them so long to renew Cobra Kai season 6 is they have to see an incentive for it, because these shows are only worth anything to them as long as they're bringing in new eyeballs. Once they stop bringing in new eyeballs, they aren't worth so much anymore. And I got to imagine Mando has brought in all the eyeballs it's going to bring in. So at this point, they don't see any reason in probably spending any more money on advertising or any of that. What do you think, Andre?
Yeah, no, you. I think you hit it right in the bullseye. I don't have really much to add to it.
All right, Jack White says, I saw a chat from Ivan Sanchez who pointed out that the AI thing is just Oda's humor, and he's not seriously going to use the AI story suggestion. I was going to say that. I think he's joking, but as the article already pointed out, you have to wait and see. So, yeah. Marksman of 11-7B says, Puss in Boots used a new art style to try and mimic storybook art styles. Oh, I did not know that. It's very noticeable in the action scenes, not cut corners, different director. Okay. That's good to know. See, there you go. There's the answer to that super chat. And with that, I believe we are caught up, unless there's any that I happen to miss in the Interium. I don't think I did, but we'll double check here real quick. Did you see any, Andre, that I might have missed?
I don't think so. So if anyone
double check the mod group,
they,
and then we'll be good.
They missed one, then let us know, or forever keep your peace. Oh, we just got one from Perilous Plane, who sent us another 200 Norwegian krona, saying, Martin Luther King Jr., I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. Not woke. Thank you, America. Yes, indeed. Words to live by. Words to live by. Again, thanks for the quote, Perilous.
And I think we've gotten all the member chats according to the mod group anyway, so we should be good there. And thank you so much again, Paulus Plain and everybody else for the super chats today and supporting us. We appreciate it. Script Doctor, anything you got to plug besides your Patreon or any videos or anything else coming?
Other than on my Patreon next month is the Marx Brothers March, where I'll be reviewing the classic Marx Brothers comedies on my Patreon. Among other reviews, I'll probably be continuing Star Trek Picard, and with Mandalorian debuting on Wednesday, I'll probably be doing that as well over there.
You know, there's a problem with Patreon and me signing up for your Patreon. Any organization that would have me as a member, I would not be a part of. Thank you. You got that at least. Now, you would hope so, being a Marx Brothers.
Yeah.
Anyway, Culture, anything coming up for you?
Well, you know, I learned some very interesting lessons yesterday with meeting with some other creators. I'm trying to employ them. So let me promote things this way. I have the 6-Minute Daily on the weekdays. Do check that out. It's a lot of fun. It is going to now start being listed as a podcast in addition to being live. So you'll start to see those things flesh out that way. We're going to try for 2 to 3 videos per week. In other words, we're slowing down on the content and focusing more on live streams. I have a member stream tomorrow for those of you that are out there that are my members. And gosh, I don't know, lots of fun on Comics Division tonight on our late show over there. So thank you for being here, everybody. You guys are amazing.
Excellent. And Damien sends in £19.99 and says, great channel. Well, thank you, Damien. We appreciate the support and the kind words. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Andre, we got Toxic Femme tonight, I believe. Anything else we need to plug before we go?
Yeah, check out Toxic Femme tonight. Check back tomorrow. We may have another scripted video then. If not then certainly by Wednesday. And if you haven't seen it already, be sure to check out the Quantumania post-mortem that we published earlier today.
Yes, that's our first post-mortem in a while.
Yeah, and also be sure to smash the like on your way out the door.
Please
Since we still have more than 1,000 people watching, almost 4 hours in. That's pretty amazing.
Yes, thank you. And we did hit over the 1,000 mark, but it doesn't hurt to have more. And with that, as we say here at Midnight's Edge, it is time
for some koalas in the rain.
Koalas in the rain, koalas in the rain. No fucks given.